This program deals with devil worship and satanic beliefs. It contains explicit scenes and descriptions of violent crimes and rituals.
Americans are asking, who attacked our country?
You have declared a subliminal jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
Everything pertaining to what's happening has never come to the surface. The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives.
And night fell on a different world.
And Iblis is thinking, I should be getting this position, not Adam, and this guy is created from dirt.
And how does the army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
And the conspiracy theorists can say what they will, but
I want you to give me power over Adam, and I want you to give me soldiers and minions and all of these things.
The people had so much to glean and had such a material motive for putting me in a position I'm in. Will never let the true facts come aboard to the world.
And I want you to be able to give me the ability to whisper into the hearts of mankind.
And who was the Grotto leader? I don't remember his name. You don't remember the name of a person who involved you in murder?
Now these people are in very high positions, Jack. Yes.
Welcome back to Subliminal Jihad, episode 90. I am your co-host, Dimitri.
I'm Khaled.
And today, we are seeing the long-awaited return of the Grotto Truth Q&A series. I feel like it's been a little while, maybe a month and a half since our last one.
Has it been? I guess maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Just a little bit behind, but more importantly, behind on the
on
total
the questions.
backlog
But
of
we've
questions.
established this,
Yeah, some of these are from June, I think, of this year, but weirdly there is a kind of synchronicity where I feel like they're more relevant now than when they were asked, right?
Yeah, some of them definitely. Or, they're just timeless questions.
They are timeless, but there have been weird synchronicities, like us dropping our COVID episode like 5 days before Dr. Fauci got fucked over publicly now.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's cool to have, a synergistic effect. But we're going to try to get through. We're doing 2 Q&As this month, but we're just doing one session today.
Yeah.
We got 11 questions. They're all really good.
Yeah, we've set ourselves 11, which...
We're going to catch up.
I was saying to Jimmy Falun Gong that we've gotten, I feel like we've gotten slower in terms of answering the questions. We used to do more, at a time, but I think 10 might be reasonable for, we're starting a little bit late today, but, so we'll see, but, Anyway.
I think we'll make some progress, and we
always make some progress. We'll at least answer one.
Yeah, so rest assured, for anybody that wants to get in line and ask a question, if you sign up for our Patreon and get access to the Grotto of Truth Discord, there's a questions sub-chat where you can ask a question. Please bracket it with SJ question if you want us to actually find it, because we have to control F it now.
I pinned a request, to do that from now on. I mean, there's still a bunch of questions that haven't done that we'll have to, it'll be a while before we get to the questions where people have gotten that memo, but I think, people hopefully will cleave to it from now on.
But we're getting there. So I guess without further ado, we can jump right in, right?
Let's start, yeah.
Sure.
Let's go.
I'll read our first question here from Young Howler. And they ask, love her, but sus Kate Bush? I don't actually know a lot about her biography, but I'm pretty sure she's a lifelong Tory who lives reclusively in a castle and has shown interest and knowledge in occult studies. Was definitely very interested in the Gurdjieff tradition, sings about astrology and dolphins. I'm just spitballing here. Okay.
Kate Bush. Yeah, I remember Wuthering Heights, the Kate Bush song Wuthering Heights, and that's definitely, a pretty sus novel. It would be interesting to revisit Wuthering Heights from an SJ perspective. I haven't read that since I don't know, 10 years. I haven't read that in 10 years, but
I've never read it. That's Emily Bronte, right?
I think is it Emily or is it Charlotte Bronte? I don't
She
know.
had
It's
a
one of the
sister?
Bronte sisters.
Oh, I didn't realize. I didn't even know about Charlotte Bronte.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
kind of
there's
interested
a bunch
in
of
that
different
era.
Bronte sisters.
I'm kind of interested in that era.
Oh yeah, Wuthering Heights
especially-
is by Emily Bronte. Yeah, there's Emily Bronte,
Okay.
Charlotte Bronte. There's also a Jane Bronte, wasn't there?
Wow. Okay.
There's a bunch of different Brontes, but Jane might not have been one of them. I might just be thinking of Jane Eyre, but
Yeah.
it was a common name.
Yeah. Kind of interested in that era of those female novelists like that aren't named Jane Austen, but maybe even Jane Austen as well.
Jane Austen was a bit before that, though, wasn't she?
I'm getting kind of Edith Wharton pilled right now. Kind of started a couple of her books, and because she's like the American version of like all of these like Victorian female writers, like George Eliot, and like all these other people. But her reads on like upper respectable New York society in like the late 1800s are pretty good, pretty scathing. You know, I feel like you can learn a lot. You can get a lot of color, you know, out of authors like that. But anyways, I mean, Kate Bush. Have you been a Kate Bush
Bronte.
fan?
The other one was Anne Bronte.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways,
and they're a little bit after Jane Austen.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of like when Jane Austen died, they were born. So they're Anyway.
Yeah. But what about Kate Bush?
What about Kate Bush? Well, you know, I remember the song "Wuthering Heights."
That's it.
You're like Wuthering Heights. Yeah, I wasn't like really a big Kate Bush fan. I don't know. Yeah, are you more of a Kate Bush fan? I didn't realize that she was a dame. Looking her up now.
Oh, is she? Interesting.
Yeah, she seems like she has the most excellent Order of the British Empire.
Well, okay, yeah, she's British, but she did have an Irish Catholic mother, and she is Catholic, or she was raised Catholic, so she's got that pops up in a lot of imagery in her songs and her music videos and stuff. I never like got really into Kate Bush. She fell into this like unfortunate category for me that a few bands and artists did over the years. Like the most direct example that comes to mind are the Pixies, where there's like one song that like everybody knows, and
was
people
that
are
Wuthering
always,
Heights?
No, it's running up the
hill. Running up the hill. Yeah, I've heard that too.
Burr, burr, burr. Okay, we get it. It's a good song. Shut the fuck up. Like, I'm sorry. For me, like another example that was like the Pixies and Where Is My Mind, and it was like only until years later I actually went and listened to like other Pixie songs. But I feel like throughout high school and college and my 20s, it was like always somebody being like, "Yo, do you listen to the Pixies, bro?" Like, where is my mind? Like, it's so good. And, you know, it's like it was used in
I feel
Fight
like the
Club.
Pixies were a little bit like before my time, like in a way. Like they
They are a
felt
little
like
bit.
kind of like a Gen X-y band. Like,
They are,
you know,
but compared to, I don't know, like Nirvana, which I was like very into as like a middle schooler or something, like the Pixies were much more East Coast. They didn't have as much of a like penetration, I feel like West Coast like kids weren't listening to the Pixies as hard. Like when I lived in the East Coast, that's when I noticed like lots of people, it was like that was their Nirvana kind of. And but like Where Is My Mind, just like I get it, I think it's a good song, but it just annoys me for some reason that like everybody's so singularly, I don't know, there's just something about like I don't know, I'm probably just being petty or weird, but it's like people coming to you like, I've discovered the secret, like I'm going to change your life right now with this song. But like when the 20th person does it, and it's like this was in Fight Club, and like it's a good song, but it's like not, it's no Hotel California.
I didn't really have the same experience. It's pretty funny for you to say like, oh, this song is a little bit overplayed. Unlike, but I guess maybe.
But people acknowledge that about the Eagles. They don't acknowledge it about the Pixies. They act like the Pixies are so cool and stuff. And
I don't
Kate
know.
Bush,
I didn't have that experience. I feel like the Pixies almost were like something that people, especially Where Is My Mind, I feel like, you know,
was a
is
breakthrough
like Guitar
hit.
Hero. Like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe
just like
because I'm a
running up
couple
that
of
hill.
years younger than you. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. Well,
but I don't know if that should make that much of a difference. But I don't know. I think I associate the Pixies with kind of like the violent femmes, like kind of like that type of shit.
Okay.
Like, you know, like
I just
bands
think of
that
like
are
art school kids on like the East Coast, like the Pixies, like
yeah,
you know, like
same.
it's like
or like
okay,
it's one
we
of those
get it, they're
bands
so
like
cool.
King Crimson or something, where you know, like I get it, like
My
okay.
Morning Jacket, worst band name ever. I hate it. I just hate that name. I don't know why. I just despise. They're not even a bad band, but I just hate it.
Okay,
like,
so
let's Morning Jacket. Okay, whatever.
Before we started recording, you were like, let's try to keep it 20 minutes. So we haven't talked about Kate Bush at all.
Okay,
and,
all right.
right.
So Kate Bush, my first exposure to that song and Kate Bush in any form, I think, was when like I think it was like the season 3 premiere of the OC used a cover of Running Up That Hill when Ryan Atwood is fighting in like an illegal cage fighting match.
Okay.
Like Chino.
All right.
I'm millennial dating myself. You know, it is what it is. And I feel like I've encountered her, and again, you know, kind of like very like a kind of art school. Like I feel like you're like, I don't know, like a polyamorous grad student or something. You might have a worshipful attitude towards Kate Bush. It's like she's a witch, like she's
a
and
witch.
like she's a feminist, like she's and so I don't know. There's always something a little because you do get like upsetting vibe. Like I always got like these like kind of upsetting vibes like from her music, but I never delved much deeper than Running Up That Hill, which is like a catchy song. It was kind of like that It's a Mad World song from like the 80s, like that everybody started covering in the 2000s, and it just like perpetuated itself forever.
Oh yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, the Donnie Darko song. Yeah, I make fun of that song all the time. Like with my fiance, I'm always like, you know, it's so fucking stupid. Well, especially like because the original version was like more of a, I don't know, like an up tempo song or something, like by some band. But then there was like that cover
like a new
that was
wave
like
song.
a Donnie Darko.
Yeah, it was in like Gears of War commercials for like video games.
So
like
stupid.
I remember that was a big deal.
Yeah,
so
well, it's just like
stupid.
the most. I feel like it's like something that would be like in the. Maybe it even was like I feel like it's something that would be like in the trailer for like Joker,
Justice League.
you know?
I think it actually was.
You know, like it's a mad
Zack Snyder
world. Like
did that. I think Zack Snyder really did
oh
that
no,
at
you know
one
what?
point.
It was in Suicide Squad, wasn't it? The trailer for Suicide
Yes,
Squad where
it
he's
was.
Margot
It
Robbie.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so fucking lame. Yeah, that's exactly my association with that. It's like unbearably
Okay.
stupid and lame.
But
Yeah.
okay. So that said, all that said, I did go back and I decided I saw this question, but I'm like, okay, people in the Grotto are vibing with Kate Bush. They also do acknowledge that there's some sus vibes there. So I decided to like go in and like, you know, read a little bit about her, listen to a few records. I have to say, like, very talented. And I feel like I've gotten past my hang up of like an unassailable boomer icon that everyone who thinks they're really sophisticated is obsessed with and thinks like whatever. Like I think she's legitimately like very, very talented, and a lot of her music is really interesting, and the imagery and everything. I went and watched, God, what was it called? Like the cross, the circle, and it was the movie that she did as an accompaniment to her 1993 album.
The line, the
red
cross,
shoes,
and the curve.
the line,
Yeah.
the cross, and the curve, and
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Oh, it's
like
based on the Red Shoes.
yeah, the Red Shoes, which
Right.
was a book, and also has like all these allusions to like, you know, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz and everything, and it's kind of like a
The Red Shoes is from before, was it the Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah,
Well, I guess
yeah,
like,
it
you know,
is.
now the Red Shoes kind of evoke the ruby slippers, but yeah, well, it's Hans Christian Andersen who
Yeah.
I kind of like Hans Christian Andersen. Like, yeah, it's a little bit like some of his writing has that sort of you know, very like fairy tale kind of like sing-songy quality, but some of it is also, you know, it certainly captures a time. Like, you know, that's very, very. There's some very interesting Hans Christian Andersen stories. You know, but yeah.
I think it's safe to say that Kate Bush definitely is obsessed with like the occult. She
Oh, yeah,
is
for
obsessed
sure.
with
I would
ideas
say
of like
so,
being
too.
a witch, and
Yeah,
she's obsessed with a lot
or-
of Catholic iconography. I don't know if you watch.
You know,
I found
maybe
a link
like
to
the
it,
gothic in the traditional sense. You know, like like I feel like goth kids like wouldn't consider Kate Bush to be like goth per se, because like she's not, you know, like post punk necessarily.
Yeah.
Or she's not like Bauhaus, you know, she's not like Susie Sue. She doesn't like necessarily dress goth, but like her music is very like you know, the inspirations for her songs are very much like gothic in the sense of like, you know, gothic literature, you know, like Wuthering Heights, like
Oh yeah,
you know, I guess
definitely.
the Red Shoes maybe like has that. It's not strictly the same or strictly gothic per se, but definitely has that kind of you know, dark vibe, you know. And there's something else that she did that was similar. I'm trying to think that kind of I think is in that vein. It's escaping me now. Oh yeah, she did the thing that was kind of based on Turn of the Screw, another kind of gothic story.
Oh, interesting.
Or novella.
Interesting.
You call it Turn of the
Yeah.
Screw. She did like what was it called? I'm looking it up now. Oh, The Infant Kiss is the name of the song. I guess it's actually based on a film called The Innocents, which is based on The Turn of the Screw. Interesting that in her rendition, apparently, it's about an unstable woman's pedophilic infatuation with a young boy in her care, which is not what The Turn of the Screw is really about.
Huh.
You know, there's definitely children involved, but I wouldn't necessarily read that into it as far as I remember. I don't know if that's a plot element in the movie The Innocents, but kind of weird that Kate Bush decided to take in that direction.
I mean,
but, all right.
She takes a lot of things in a lot of interesting directions. And one thing that I think is fascinating about her is that she only went on tour once, I think in like the late 70s, when she was kind of on her come up.
Right. Yeah, because she's like, reclusive, mad woman in the attic.
Reclusive, and yeah, but she was a huge pioneer in kind of music videos. Like going back to even like the late 70s before MTV and like most people were doing it, and they're very evocative. They're like very like Kenneth Anger, in a way, like not like, as like Luciferian, like in your face, but there's one particular video from her movie. I forget what it's called. I'm trying to see which song it was. I don't know if it's Moments of Pleasure or the Song of Salt. Oh wait, no, I think it's the Red Shoes. Yes, it's the Red Shoes. Let me see if I can find it right now, because it's like an extremely. It's one of the like this short film that she did is kind of a 45-minute suite of like connected music videos, and I think a lot of them were like chopped up to basically, oh yeah, here it is, the Red Shoes, the title track. And let me give it to you in the chat right here. And if you skip ahead to like 2 minutes in the video, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's extremely Hell in a Bucket. It's like extremely Hell in a Bucket when you start to get like, she's dancing with two devil men on a mountain of skulls with like fire in the background, and the devil has given her the magical red shoes, and she's like, and it's kind of like an Irish Celtic like rhythm, which she was very like into, and she's wearing this like sexy black dress and wearing a kind almost like beta sex kitten, like little cat ears, but maybe kind of like horns as well. And the kind of refrain at the end is like, it's really happening to ya. And she's like so happy and like excited. But then at the end of the video, she gets kind of rolled up like a pretzel, and her feet are like comically like wiggling around in the air with the red shoes on. And this guy who seems to represent the devil is like standing there, and she's like, help me take these off. And he turns around and he goes like, it's really happening to ya, huh? Like, and it's just like so sus. Like basically she meets like an Irish fairy queen who like kind of, like tells her, I'm going to give you these magical red shoes. And then she does. And it turns out they're a curse. And then like that means that like she's been enslaved by like this spirit of like a banshee woman that in turn was cursed by being given the shoes and blah, blah, blah. So it's like a whole thing.
The original story of the red shoes basically sounds kind of similar to that. Basically that like, a girl gets this pair of red shoes. And yes, they become cursed in some way, or they were always cursed. But basically she just has to dance and can't stop dancing until she dies.
Yeah, that's what it's like. It's done in kind of a wacky way, but that's basically what happens to her. Is like her legs just keep like wiggling and wiggling, and she's like increasingly like they're almost like she's like contorted in a bizarre position. It's probably some kind of prop where they're like somebody else's legs are like wiggling around, and it's not her. But yeah, it's like it's a lot of spooky imagery. She definitely talks a lot about witchcraft. We discovered like an academic paper that was kind of talking about like all the feminist themes and like the embrace of the occult. There's the one song where she talks about the four archangels like in a circle around her, like protecting her. Like I think it's literally referenced off a banishing spell in the Kabbalah.
That does sound very like, a lot of the time you'll invoke like the four archangels to like, especially in a circle, to protect you. Like,
so she's really into like magic. Definitely, I would say like more in like the white magic variety. She doesn't seem to be like embracing Satanism per se, but she does seem to be embracing like being like a Celtic witch. Witchery. And but I think that's also why like people like her today, is because she's like a feminist witch, you know what I mean? And so I think that's like but maybe that's, I don't know. I feel like it all comes from a very personal place. And yeah, the other one that the other video I watched, I just put it in the chat for you, that I think was released like independently in the late 80s, was called Experiment 4, which actually stars a young Hugh Laurie. But that might be the most sus kind of video that I've found of Kate Bush, because the lyrics of it, let me just see if it was. Yeah,
I mean,
the
lyrics of the infant kiss are pretty sus too. I mean, looking up the plot of the movie The Innocents, it does seem like there's like a little bit of that there, but I mean, the infant kiss kind of really puts it all out there. You know, it really is just like about a woman who like is in love with like a little boy. Like, what the fuck?
The innocent kiss. Okay, I haven't heard that song yet.
The infant kiss. Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah, it's very fucking weird. Like, you know, there's no real ambiguity in the lyrics. It's just like about like, I'm in love with a little boy. I'm a woman and I love a little boy. And I'm a pedophile. Like,
oh my god. Okay, yeah. Let's just read this for a second. Okay, this is from 1980. So she was probably like, I don't know, 20 or something. Like she started out very young, and she got turned on. She came from like kind of a well-off family of artsy people in England, and her dad was like friends with David Gilmour of Pink Floyd, and he passed along like a demo tape when she was like 15, and so she got signed, I want to say to like EMI, I think, and they gave her like a huge advance, and she spent a few years like doing dance lessons and piano lessons and stuff, and like honing her craft. And then I think when she was 19 was when her first album. But okay, these lyrics: I say goodnight, night, I tuck him in tight, but things are not right. What is this? An infant kiss that sends my body tingling? I've never fallen for a little boy before. No control. Just a kid and just at school. Back home they'd call me dirty. His little hand is on my heart. He's got me where it hurts me. Knock, knock, who's there in this baby? You know how to work me. All my barriers are going. It's starting to show. Let go, let go. I cannot sit and let something happen. I'll regret. Ooh, he scares me. There's a man behind those eyes. I catch him when I'm bending. Ooh, how he frightens me when they whisper privately. Poor stupid girl. Windy wail he blows me. Words of caress on their lips that speak of adult love. I want to smack, but I hold back. I only want to touch, but I must stay and find a way to stop before it gets too much. Okay.
So yeah, like some of that like does kind of seem like Turn of the Screw inspired, or like, you know, by an interpretation of Turn of the Screw, where like the kid is like literally possessed by like the ghost of like an adult. But I feel like the like element of like the lust of, I guess, the governess figure, or like the, you know, the hero in that story is not like as heavily, is not put on as thick or really even at all in the original. Maybe in the movie The Innocents. But you know,
that's
that
weird. So
really
she feels like there's a
know.
Man like inside of this baby that like, wants her, and she's fighting the. Oh, I mean, I don't know. Like,
that's fucked up. Yeah,
that's a lot.
Experiment 4 has got weird lyrics too.
Yeah. I have it right here. I mean, this is a crazy video. Like, this is a very like bizarre MK, almost like, you know, in light of Havana Syndrome. Talk about relevant. This is what Experiment 4's lyrics are. We were working secretly for the military. Our experiment in sound was nearly ready to begin. We only know in theory what we are doing. Music made for pleasure. Music made to thrill. It was music we were making here until they told us all they wanted was a sound that could kill someone from a distance. So we go ahead and the meters are over in the red. It's a mistake in the making. From the painful cries of mothers to a terrifying scream, we recorded it and put it into our machine. They told us all they wanted was a sound that could kill someone from a distance. Blah, blah, blah. It could feel like falling in love. It could feel so bad. It could feel so good. It could sing you to sleep. But that dream is your enemy. We won't be there to be blamed. We won't be there to snitch. I just pray that someone there can hit the switch. They told us all they wanted was a sound that could kill someone from a distance. So we go ahead, and the meters are over in the red. It's a mistake in the making, and the public are warned to stay off.
This sounds like just a straight up like chronicle of something that actually happened.
I know,
like,
right?
Yeah,
they
like
Kate Bush, the
I like how there's like
in.
not really much of like, I mean, I guess you could read this entire thing as a metaphor, but there isn't really like much of a metaphor here. It's just like a straight up narrative of like a bunch of artists who are working to make like, you know, compelling music, but then like the people who are funding them come in and are like, actually, like what we're really interested in is like music that can like kill people. Like, this is interesting, like, all the psyop type stuff that you're doing and, like, you know, the emotional manipulation. But, like, really, yeah, I feel like we've seen that story, like, so many times in these type of, like, you know, MK projects where, like, they have, like, some kind of subtle thing worked out, or they're making progress in some kind of, you know, more oblique direction, but then like the people who are funding it are like, yeah, but like, okay, that's interesting that you can like read minds or whatever, but can you like make people's heads explode, you know? Like, how can we use this to just like kill somebody, you know? Like,
well, I mean, for sure, like when you think about like Owsley Stanley developing the Wall of Sound, like for the Grateful Dead, and,
yeah,
like, the
exactly,
potential like dual use experimental, like,
yeah, I can
that
see Owsley Stanley being like, think about how you can manipulate people, like for the propaganda value of this, and then being like, yeah, but like, what if the Wall of Sound could just like kill Fidel Castro? You know, like,
yeah, right. And then, you know, Michael Aquino talking in Mind War about using sonic weaponry and like low frequency waves and stuff. So it's like she's not talking out of nowhere about this experiment 4.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know. Is she trying to blow the whistle, you know, a little bit, or is she revealing a method? I mean, she did get damed by Her Majesty eventually. So I don't know, but I mean, I think it's interesting. She's in that kind of liminal case of like, I'm not exactly convinced that she's like celebrating the dark things that she talks about in her things, but she's gone down some spooky. She's dove into some spooky catacombs before, I think, artistically and maybe personally. The last thing I'll say is like, she's supposed. Young Haller says that she's a lifelong Tory. I looked that up, and I guess I don't know if she's like really a Tory, but she did say something in 2016 supportive of Theresa May that was like, when I went back and looked at it, it was actually just like a very like 2016 I'm with her kind of girl bossy statement about how like they were like, I don't know what they said. They were like, do you think that sexism played a role in like Hillary Clinton losing? And she's like, I don't know, but like in England, we've had, you know, a female prime minister. It's like the best thing that's happened to us in a while. And it shows that like it's great to have a woman in charge and stuff like that. So people jumped on her as like, oh shit, you're a Tory. But then like a couple years, she took a few years before coming out and being like, that's not really what I meant. I was referring to David Cameron, who was way worse than her. And I was just saying that, like, it's nice to have, like, women in positions of power and blah, blah, blah.
I mean,
so it's like,
that doesn't seem like someone who's very politically aware to, like, say anything even adjacent to that about Thatcher.
Yeah. Not Thatcher, Theresa May.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not Thatcher.
I thought she was saying, like, when we had one, it was one of the best things that happened.
Oh, no, yeah. She was speaking when Theresa May was prime minister, but I think also, like, before Brexit. I forget if it was before or after Brexit, like, happened, but she was kind of... She claimed later she was contrasting her positively in relation to David Cameron, who she didn't like, and yeah, I don't really know. Like, so you know, she might be a little bit of a Tory, also might be a little bit of a lib. You know, I think that, or just kind of like a boomer, like rich feminist who's like, I like seeing women at the corporate boardroom table. Like that means that democracy's working. Like, you know, okay, whatever. But yeah, I don't know if she's like a hardcore Tory. She said that she doesn't like making political statements, and she doesn't.
Yeah,
like
she's
talking
probably
about politics.
apolitical, like most occultists are. You know, she probably only cares about like, you know, the white goddess Baphomet and her presence in the boardroom.
Sure. You know, yeah. So, you know, but I think her music is good, and it's very interesting, very eclectic, and like out there and weird. And, you know, but she also could have been like, her career kind of feels like she was like an indigo child prodigy that like they identified very early. Like, oh, this girl's like freakishly talented. We need to like put millions of dollars into her and like cultivate her and blah, blah, blah. And let her, I don't know, experiment with magic and then make like very strange albums that are haunting and kind of beautiful. But I think that I'm glad I listened to the rest of it because a lot of it's like way more interesting than Running Up That Hill. I think that it's like kind of like, it's an okay song, but you know, anyways. Okay, so should we move on to number 2?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to read that?
All right, I'll read it. Sir Brainy asks, thoughts on What's Bappin'? Yeah, I mean, What's Bappin' is truly a singular individual. Yeah, I don't know what
Notorious.
else to say. Yeah, I mean, I think like what's Bappin is kind of like what happens when you just like reach a state of like pure contrarianism, where like you just develop like very like passionately held opinions based on like trying to have the opposite opinion to what others have. Like, but you know, like whatever you come across, you have to like position yourself opposite to it, and you end up like in this weird, like bizarre ideological corner. I don't think that there's anything like sus about Wes Bappin. It's just kind of like, you know, this weird freak.
I think it's when I went and looked at his, I need a little refresher.
I don't think like anyone listens to Wes Bappin though.
That's the
like,
thing.
I don't
I think
like.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's ops and there's ops. You know, like I think that he's somebody that it's like he might just be a kind of self-regulating op.
Yeah, I think that if he's an op,
like,
he's a self-regulating op.
He's a lone
like,
wolf,
you know.
op.
Yeah,
But
like
he's
I think
definitely
that
opping.
he. Yeah, I mean he opted, but I feel like with the operations that he's kind of like running, like you know, on autopilot, like aren't like effective on anybody. Like
I think nowadays that's
he's like
true.
in fact, like he's like such a laughing stock. I feel like that like the more you converge with Wes Bappin, like the more, you know, your opinion is suspect. I think.
That's probably
I mean,
true.
one thing I will say for Wes Bappin is that I think that there's one thing that I think Wes Bappin has like a little bit of a point about, which is that is like, you know, and I'm not saying that this is like true of everyone who like, you know, makes statements in this vein, but I do think that like there's, you know, certainly a tendency like on the left of people who like have like a very dilettantish or like shallow knowledge of the Middle East to like get into kind of like a I mean, I don't know if Wes Bappin has even moved past this phase now, or like what this is like, you know, something that's that he continues to espouse, but you know, his whole thing of like the like anti-Sunni, like the left wants to genocide all Sunnis or whatever. I feel like well, that was something that he would say for a while. I don't know if he, you know, still says that. I know that now he's like all about being like pro-Israel or whatever.
He literally
and
said
like of course, you know,
to all
his
Jewish people, the left wants to kill you.
Yeah, well, of course, like his version of like any stance is like completely ridiculous and like he's like a maniac. But I think like, you know, what he observed, like there is a little bit of truth to it, especially like in the heyday when like for whatever, you know, bizarre oppy reason, like the Syrian war was very like determinative of American politics. And like people were first like getting like in the words of a Harvard student who actually overheard once, quote unquote, radicalized by Chapo. That, you know, there were like people who were like, oh yeah, you know, like everyone who's Sunni, like they're actually Al Qaeda, and like it's a Shia who are good. And it's like, shut the fuck up, like that's not remotely true. Like,
I do remember this era, and I remember you kind of setting me right at various points. Not that I ever went that far, but I think that there was a time where if you looked at the breakdown, the geopolitical breakdown in the Syrian conflict, you saw that there were all these, pretty much all the majority Sunni factions were backed by the Gulf states, like the EU, the UK, and the United States, and like their ally, like NATO, basically, and Turkey and Israel. And so seeing like that squad lined up behind like these quote unquote like Sunni insurgents and whatever. I see why people, and then, you know, like all the Shias are standing up against U.S. imperialism, and the Alawites are standing up against it, et cetera, et cetera. But I do agree, like that's like an extremely way too reductive thing, and it also kind of like I think it overstates like the influence and both numerically and just like qualitatively of like Al Qaeda type people and like even like I think Salafists. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like in the overall Sunnah, you know, of the Sunni,
well, definitely
the entire
for
Sunni
sure.
population. You know,
well, yeah, of course, it shows like not a very meaningful like not a very robust understanding of Sunnism in general. But I also think like it doesn't show like a very good understanding, I think, of like even of Al Qaeda or like movements like Al Nusra and like who's in them, and like, you know, it's kind of like adopting this weird, like it's like from an imperial, like an anti-imperial axis perspective, like adopting this like weird terror war like metric. Like not to say that like those groups aren't bad and like aren't sus and like in many ways like, you know, like are propped up by Saudi Arabia or by Gulf monarchs or by the U.S., or Israel is being caught again for sponsoring them or in whatever way. But I just like so. I mean, I definitely think that like when outside of like the political situation within Syria, like it was determinative of the kind of like political discourse that Wasbappen like was kind of operating within, like of like people like bloviating on Twitter. And I think that a lot of like wannabe like experts like 20-year-olds like who are being radicalized by like these podcasts by idiots like in their dorm rooms, and then thinking that they were like geopolitical masterminds who just now learned from some podcasts that there's a difference between Sunni and Shia and like what it is in vague terms. They're like, oh, one of them's good, one of them's bad. And like there definitely was a time like on Twitter, which I think is really the source of Wasbappen's sort of psychosis and his general perception of the world, where like there were a bunch of obnoxious people who are like, they're all Al-Qaeda, and it's just like,
I think that even ties like way back to 9/11 and like the start of the war on terror, the kind of there's different layers of the onion that you can accept when you start to reject like the dominant war on terror narrative. And I feel like the first layer of the onion is like, oh my God, like Saudi Arabia helped all these hijackers and stuff, and they fund Al-Qaeda and all these things, even though they pretend they don't. So like, what the, and then, so I feel like some people go off on that to be like, Saudi Arabia is spreading like this version of Wahhabism around, various places around the world. And in some places, like their intelligence services are actively trying to recruit jihadi, like mercenaries, basically to go and fight in different places. And sure, like America might be kind of, involved in that to some degree, but it's like we have to get control of our Saudi friends over there and assert that like we need to tell them to stop. Like that's what like Robert Baer would say like in his books and stuff. And that's like level one. But then it's like you dig deeper and it's like, well, how much of this stuff is just being kind of like cynically manufactured and doesn't actually have as big of a base as like anybody claims that it does. And it's kind of like when you need to send in an army of mercenaries, like you send in these people that, like, as we talked before about with ISIS, who are kind of very insincere fundamentalists in a lot of ways. Like, they're not really religiously sophisticated, and it's not really organic.
No, certainly not religiously sophisticated, that's for sure. Or even, like, really, like, religiously motivated, like, fundamentally. Like, in a brutal situation, a lot of the time, like, the most, like, brutal group is the one that's going to like sort of bubble to the top, especially if like they have sponsorship. And I think that everyone who gets sort of swept up into like one of these groups, be it ISIS or even be it al-Nusra, like, I think that they're not all like super devoted to like the ISIS ideology such as it is. And that definitely was something that the Western media kind of suggested or portrayed as being true. Absolutely. That like the people in ISIS were like, these very, intellectual, like, Salafists who were going out there, to live out the, the true Islam. ISIS is Islamic. Very Islamic.
Very Islamic. Like they literally are going to sack Rome if we don't stop them.
Yeah, exactly. Like that was the real, like, driving thrust behind ISIS was like, an Islamic ideological project. Like, no, that's not.
When in fact it was Operation Timber Sycamore, like a $5 billion CIA project to like arm whoever we could get basically to go in there. And then like it's so complicated, but I think there was definitely people who got like distracted on the left into like picking sides in like a sectarian conflict that is really
well. Like, actually, looking at Wasbappen's the twit text, his little articles here under the name of Anti-White People Action.
Cool.
Yeah, he here's one take that I think has a little bit of merit to it, where he's saying kind of weird leftists were the ones to secure the first Aryan homeland of the 21st century. Biji Bekswadana Rojava is how you say the 14 words from the left. If the Northwest Front took over after Trump withdrew to besiege Chicago and the Carolinas, non-whites wouldn't have to worry about extermination. It just gets conscripted while the cadres haggled out an autonomy deal with Trump and prepared to fight the real enemy, Canada. like, again, what is this fucking metaphor? Oh, sorry, it's the Northwest Front. It's a local yellow vest knockoff made of benighted working class folk the lefties will love. And Canada has so many missing Indigenous women. Better prepare to liberate Turtle Island. Decolonize now. So he's so, like, fucking, like, off in some other dimension, but I feel like what he's saying is that, like, you know, the idea that, like, the like fanatical, like obviously like astroturf, like love of Rojava, like, you know, is a good example of how, like, you know, I think that maybe what started to spiral this person off into insanity was seeing the way that these like very facile ideological camps formed on Twitter around this conflict that people mostly had no relationship to the point that they were like flying overseas to be like DoD mercenaries and calling airstrikes on the iPad. You know, because that was, it all comes down to solidarity. So yeah, like I think that like that might have been like, you know, the little germ of something that like was like kind of a real phenomenon that slowly like drove this person out of their mind to the point where I can still see like, you know, like a glimmer of something that like I kind of can understand where they're coming from, and the rest of this is borderline incomprehensible.
Oh yeah,
like
no, he uses such like fascist language to accuse everybody on the left of being like a literal fascist, but then the reasons he gives for them being fascist are like what? Like, I don't know. He's no, it's true. I mean, I think, but you know, there were a lot of like tankies who were the people that he hates more than anybody that also were saying the same shit about like Rojava being like an ethno state and like under different circumstances, like leftists would be against this, but because it's like based and like it's
anarchism,
like feminist
and
communalism,
it's democratic, federalist, environmentalist feminism.
And lost in that is like you don't really need to take a side on the whole Assad issue if you're a leftist, because that was the hot button stance to take in like 2014, 2015, 2016. That would get you like uninvited from panels at like fucking Left Forum and get like boycotted and canceled for the most part. If you were like a serious journalist, then if you came out and were just like, I think that like the Assad government should not be overthrown, people are like, oh my god, you're a fucking fascist, like you're a fascist Assadist, you know, like and he was Babin was like huge on that tip of like, you Assadist fucking tankies who just love genociding like blah 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 Sunnis. So he was playing it from the other end, but yeah, I don't know, but like, you know, it was hard to take us nowadays. Like people don't really care anymore; they moved on, or you know, people on the left were able to like sidestep that issue and just be like, yeah, but the Kurds, bro. The Kurds, that's my team. Like, I don't believe in this two-party system, man. I want to go with the Green Party. The Kurds, like the Rojava Kurds over here. And, you know, eventually, like any third party in America, they got kind of folded into, they were just like a puppet of something else. They weren't anything like really legitimate. And, you know, they were not nice to Sunnis either, but unlike, you know, anybody that even refused to condemn Assad was saying like, you want to genocide Sunnis, but then like you could go fight in Based Rojava, which was actually dispossessing Sunnis from their land and replacing them with Kurds in many cases, just by if they claim that you're like ISIS. I
mean, we read that article in like a past Q&A of the guy who was like, I should have never left Raqqa. You know, like, like what?
So
that's
that
not a ringing endorsement.
Acceptable way.
Not a ringing endorsement.
In kind of a fucked up way, it allowed like people like leftists to be like mean towards Sunnis and also mean towards like Alawites and like Assad.
It's a great way
people.
to like leftistly murder Arabs. It's an amazing way to leftistly murder Arabs. Like,
it's some hyper trot shit.
Kurds.
It's some hyper trot.
And it's like, you know, I feel like I get it. If you're a Kurd and you live like, you know, in Rojava, you know, if you live in northern Syria, and like you actually like that's your positionality like in the world, and like I can understand like, you know, why you have like an animus towards like Sunni Arabs, and why like, you know, or why you would be motivated, you know, why your circumstances would lead you to like commit acts of terrorism like against Turkey, or even why you would like, you know, if the US comes, like they're going to you know, like offer you like air support, and you know why you would want to take it, like if you're, you know, that's your background, like that's like, you know, the land that you identify with, like that's your home, blah blah blah, like, you know, but like if you're a fucking like fool from NYU or some shit who's like on Twitter, like, you know, to the point where you're like, you know, trying to pick sides in this like, you know, deeply like, you know, riven conflict, and like dehumanizing like one faction or another, or thinking you have like all figured out like who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, especially to the point where you're like, I'm gonna fly there and I'm gonna join one of these armies.
I'm gonna spend
like
thousands
that's
of dollars.
deranged. It's deranged.
It is.
You know, it's literally, it's deranged.
Just look at the guy who just got arrested for his like January 6th threats. Another YPG vet got the book thrown.
Oh yeah,
at
the
him.
Hare
Daniel
Krishna.
Baker. Yeah, the Hare
Right.
Krishna.
Yeah, no, it's
not
just
sus at all.
It's awful.
Who like trained? He was like running, I think, the training for all the international like horn-rimmed hipsters that, you know, went there. He was like, you know,
yeah, I
he was
wonder
there for a while.
I wonder why like he was like singled out, because I feel like there's a bunch of people who probably like tweeted things like that. And I mean, obviously, he's like a more visible figure, but I wonder, like, what about that guy? Like, do they have some kind of mission for him, like, in prison? Like, I don't know.
Who the fuck knows? Maybe make him another, like, Intercept kind of human interest story.
Oh, yeah, you know what?
Yeah,
I mean, he's only going for, like, 44 months or something, right? Yeah, I feel like there's some kind of reason behind that. You know, not to say that, like,
there must be.
You know,
I believe he was at the
deserves
Chaz
to go
shooting.
to prison for, like, what he said. I
He was
mean...
at I wouldn't be surprised if, like, if you looked at, like, Brooklyn Dad Defiance fucking tweets, like, he probably tweeted some shit about how to shoot MAGA people like, after January 6th. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's really funny that, like, you know, the amazing, like, the base, like, democratic confederalist, like, anarchist take on, like, the political situation in America is, like, we must, like, surround the Capitol Police and, like, protect them, like, from, like, the mob, you know, like, okay.
Protect
I think that they're
cops.
fine. I really think that they're fine. Like, they're gonna be okay. Like...
Oh my god. Yeah. But you know,
Officer Sicknick needs our help. You know, like,
Officer Sicknick. Yeah, he sure does.
Solidarity, you know, it all comes down to
Officer
solidarity. You know, it all comes down to solidarity.
Yeah, they're just like Liz Cheney on that. Yeah. So I mean, was Bappin, but his Substack is psychotic today. I just read like a couple of his articles and they almost broke my brain. The one from July, he wrote "Time to Liberate Cuba." This is his proposal that in order to win in 2024 against the likely nominee, Ron DeSantis, Joe Biden should take the golden opportunity to cripple every domestic challenge and secure a generation of electoral victories. All it takes is one little invasion. I thought he was literally being sarcastic for some reason. Like there was a kind of joke, like a running joke I didn't get, like reading this entire article, but he seems to be incredibly serious. Like, he says that they face a formidable challenger in Ron DeSantis. So far, they have no countermeasures against him, and most, if not all, attacks have fallen apart under scrutiny. He knows that the Long March Democrats, I think he means the squad, have completely compromised the party's bureaucratic bench, and their desire to collaborate with the Axis is a vulnerability. I don't know who means that. An invasion of Cuba would deal a death blow to the socialist communist allegations, more truthfully than not, lobbied by Republicans. This can stanch the bleeding Democrats are seeing in various immigrant communities and put new parts of the map into play that have been solidly Republican for decades, namely Texas and Florida. An invasion of Cuba would flush out the rats within the Democratic Party and halt their attempts to destroy it from within. Cuba occupies a special place among the American left, and even nominally anti-tanky leftists, an oxymoron, as all leftists are tankies in one way or another, have a soft spot for the regime, even if only for its healthcare, which is propaganda anyway. These segments are also the chief sources of anti-Semitism within the party. Operation Cuba Libre would rob Republicans, and especially DeSantis, of a major attack vector they will use in 2024. The Democrats value anti-Semites who wish to destroy the United States more than Jewish Democrats, one of the party's most reliable constituencies. Of course, the, quote, leftist detractors will shriek, not even the neocons want to invade Cuba right now. And why should they? The broad spectrum of Republicans, lazily and inaccurately referred to as neoconservatives, are still conservatives. They will play thoughts and prayers Mad Libs and no more. They do not want to break the wheel. They want it to roll more traditionally over those beneath it. They only appear to be radical because the tradition of revolutionary war has been wholly abdicated by progressive forces outside of our vanguard of the willing. Neoconservatives are poor, unwilling stewards of a tradition foisted upon them with which they have no history, affinity, or desire to see revived. Beyond this, even mainstream Democrats have been brainwashed into an aversion to war by their leftist, really a paleocon libertarian populist amalgamation flank. At most, they see war as something to be done only in the most extreme of circumstances, an unjustifiable, quote, crime in any other. This notion arises from the same nonsensical populist metaphysics as do anti-consumerism, the buy local organic movement, and flat eartherism. It is a bourgeois affectation and delusion. The true heirs of the democratic revolutions use war as simply another tool in the political toolbox. It is no longer limited to royals and their small professional armies, but a mass phenomenon that can and has reshaped society countless times. It is no coincidence that the U.S. military is the most highly integrated institution within the U.S. and quite possibly the world. War can be just as useful in reshaping domestic coalitions and material conditions as it is for changing international ones. We could look to the example of Bismarck, who leveraged Prussian victories in 3 short, sharp wars against his neighbors to defeat internal rivals and create a united Germany. Direct action gets the goods. We should not be afraid to use a Cuban war to forge electoral coalitions and expand what is possible within our own borders. We haven't even considered how many states we could get out of this. This is the shocking line that I really thought he was like doing a joke. Only blood and iron can bend the arc of history toward justice, not great speeches and liberalism. This is the lesson of 2011. The pro-fascist progressive hypnotists who have taken control of the Democratic Party deny us this divine power to reignite history and mold it to our will. Their will. They are the great agents of, quote, neoliberalism. Stripped of this, we are left to bob helplessly in the wakes of reactionary powers who are granted total freedom of becoming. We can only react and adapt to new realities. They can create at will. The American liberation of Cuba presents the rare opportunity to aid another group of human beings achieve their own freedom while breaking the forces of reaction at home. It would be a dereliction of duty of the highest order not to ruthlessly seize it. Kennedy showed the way. Now comes time to consummate that grand vision. That is the most Nazi shit I've read in like a while. From like what
I'm
the fuck?
just reading through his like frothing hatred for Palestinians, which is like his new like kind of big bugbear. This is an amazing line that he uses to open an essay. Why haven't Palestinian jets ended Assad's regime and the Syrian genocide in one strike? Like what fucking Palestinian jets? They don't have jets.
I don't know. He said in that article to all Jewish people, the left is trying to kill you, that there is no, quote, legitimate criticism of Israel. It does not exist. There are far more legitimate criticisms of Mexico or Indonesia, never mind Syria, Russia, China, or Iran, yet these places never figure into leftist propaganda. There's reason for this. And, he says that Jewish people need Israel. There were supposed to be 3 Holocausts in the 20th century. 2 were stopped, one certainly and both potentially by Israel. Now this is a doozy. By all appearances, had Stalin lived, his doctor's plot would have extinguished the Jewish population that remained inside the Soviet Union and its satellites. This remained a latent threat until mass immigration of Jewish people from the Eastern Bloc, primarily to Israel. I'm sorry, Stalin was going to murder the millions of Soviet Jews before he died, but he died, so like that didn't happen. Like that.
Well, but then how did Israel stop it? And like even assuming that's true, like what did Israel have to do with it?
I think he means that eventually, because Israel accepted all of these immigrants, the whole refuse nix thing in like the 70s and the 80s, that like they saved all these Jews. But then why didn't they? A bunch of them stayed. So like, why didn't Stalin kill all of them? Like, I just can't with this motherfucker. He says,
It seems like it wasn't stopped by Israel, but
it would
have been stopped by Israel if it weren't stopped by Stalin dying. In this like fantasy world.
I know,
anyway,
right? Yeah, so that was Holocaust number 2, and then the Arab-Israeli wars were attempted Holocaust number 3, which was stopped by the based IDF. So I don't even know. Yeah, we should probably move on. He's too insane. I can't even.
We should. Him. But this is a great, this is him disavowing any support for the Syrian revolution. He says, I understand what I have done to your movement. I have, in your eyes, dealt tremendous damage to it, making others think your revolution is anything more than a second rank of spears behind a fascist, anti-Semitic Palestinian vanguard. For this reason, I will do as you wish. after 10 years, I hereby renounce any and all support for the Syrian revolution. Yeah, I mean, this guy's obviously insane. It's true that every single anti-Assad leftist who has glommed onto Syria, most within the last 2 years, as I said, would happen after the fall of Daraa, once the potential of a dreaded U.S. intervention to save Syrian lives is completely taken off the table, has demonstrable connections to Assadism. This is evident through their friends or the Islamo-mismic, like I guess, as opposed to Islamophobic, Islamo-mismic, like Islam-hating discourses they perpetuate about the revolution. I mean, yeah, I guess, like, that basic point, I think that's kind of, like, basically what I was saying, that, like, there was a little bit of, like, Muslim hatred, like, baked into some of the takes on Syria that I think that, is one true element of, like, what he's, like, it was,
I think we can all agree that ISIS are pretty bad guys.
yeah, exactly.
Like that kind of thing.
I mean, we want secularism. We want an ethno-state, a secular ethno-state.
Anyway. Yeah.
Worst smelling men on planet. Yeah.
Committed a war crime by peeing on a dead Arab.
Anyway.
Anyways.
Sorry, whoops. Getting a little bit undiplomatic here, but anyway, sorry. Just gets me a little bit pissed off when I think about some of this stuff. Anyway.
I know. Well, okay. We made it through another Syria question.
Okay, all right.
So we're going to go to number 3 here.
Yeah.
I'll read from Country Dick. Now, this is a good one that is, I feel like, relevant right now.
We're not out of the woods yet in terms of the...
We're not out of the woods yet. No. So Country Dick asks, any insights or thoughts on the 2020 Milwaukee sex trafficking allegations? Now, do you remember this from last year, from June 2020?
Yes, I do.
I remember it too, and I'll confess. I
remember finding it very sus, and I do remember certain people jumping out in front of it to, be dismissive of it. In a way that seemed like a little bit conspicuous, because like of all things to debunk, it definitely didn't seem like there was like irrefutable debunkment of this. There definitely seemed to be enough murkiness around it that even from the most like skeptical point of view, you would have to give a little bit of leeway. But it's surprising. Certain people who otherwise, kind of you would think would be in the camp of giving the benefit of the doubt, or considering some of these more out there ideas about child trafficking rings or things like that, were oddly down on this and very adamant about its debunkment.
I would agree, and especially given the climate, because that was like 1 month into the George Floyd protests. So there were riots, there were protests, like in all these different cities. And then this video comes out. I just rewatched it the other day, and it is pretty like shocking to see. Like it's a bizarre scene. It's like dozens of people there. This is in like a primarily black neighborhood in Milwaukee, and they're standing at this house. Everyone's like surrounding this house and like yelling at all these cops that have formed a perimeter and are like protecting the house. And there's a van there, and there are individuals. I couldn't tell if they were actual police or there were other people, but there were people taking individuals out of the house and putting them in the van. And I think they had like blankets over them or like hoods over their heads or something like that. And I think by what the crowd is shouting, you get the sense that some of these people might be children, the people that are being herded into the van. And the cops are kind of preventing this angry mob from, like, I don't know, going in there and seeing what the hell is going on. And it's like a very tense, like bizarre situation. People are kind of just like yelling, like, yo, what the fuck? Like, there's like, you're taking a kid in a van right now. Like, what are you doing? Because I think 2 teenage girls had gone missing a few days prior in that neighborhood.
Right, yes. And yeah, that was basically what I recall happening, that like there were sort of rumors around this house, like that had been mentioned in connection with, other disappearing kids, or, maybe the people who lived there were registered sex offenders or something in that line. But yeah, the kid eventually like did turn up, and maybe she originally indicated that she had been there, but then like her story changed in some way. But anyway, yeah, like eventually the kid who disappeared showed up unharmed, apparently unharmed. Seemed to be
okay.
safe.
So they did find. Well, there are 2 girls there. So did they find both of them?
I thought that the one who kind of like initiated it, I didn't know that there were two that had gone missing at the time that this all started.
Yeah, I'm looking at the time from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel from June 24th, the day after. From 2100 North 40th Street. The house was also set on fire, like after the vans left.
Oh yeah, two missing teenage girls, right?
Yeah, there's another video I watched where they're yelling at the cops who are still guarding the house as it burns. Like, where's the fire department? Why aren't you? Why are you guys letting this house burn?
By one of their mothers. They were both found by one of their mothers.
Okay, more than 3 miles away. They've since been reunited with their families after interviews with investigators. Huh. Yeah, that is. Let me see. When did they? 3 people. Yeah, 3 people were shot, plus 10 officers and a firefighter were injured. The house was set on fire twice, and an unknown number of others hurt by tear gas and rubber bullets police fired into a scattered crowd.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a big...
2 14-year-olds were shot, I guess, in the protests that ensued.
Yeah.
Yes, because they were doing vigilantism.
So the way it started, how it unfolded... that around 5 p.m. on the Sunday, the 2 girls, ages 13 and 15, were last seen in the 2900 block of North 21st Street. They were reported missing 4 hours later. Then the police responded to North 40th Street to this house on Monday in reference to the report of the missing girls. MPD call logs show police twice went to the block that night at 10:11 p.m. for a, quote, trouble with subject call, and again 1 hour later for the report of a threat. Police searched the house but did not find the missing girls. Multiple MPD officials said the girls did not fit the criteria for an Amber Alert and they were not labeled as critically missing because police were not given information leading them to believe their lives were in danger. That rankled some members of the public who felt the police were not doing all they could to find the girls. And so on Tuesday mornings, this would have been 2 days after the girls disappeared, a group of people congregated outside a specific home on the 2100 block after seeing social media posts about the house and the 2 missing girls. Police were called shortly after 10 a.m. After several people allegedly tried entering the home to look for them. And then a community activist, Vaughn Mays, arrived around the same time. About 24 people were there. Mays was live streaming over Facebook, which got several thousand people watching. He said he went to North 40th Street because a home there had a reputation for housing missing children, and he intended to help find them. Quote, people feel like the police don't do shit. So a lot of this shit is us taking our own shit. It says expletive. I'm assuming he says shit. So a lot of this shit is us taking our own shit into our own hands. While police searched the home on North 40th Street, Mays and others walked around the neighborhood, knocking on doors and searched the girls. When they returned around 11, police had left the scene and the crowd had grown larger. Police later said the girls were not located there, just as they had not been the night before. Minutes later, members of the crowd began poking around the backyard of the house, and then people were trying to enter the house. 3 or 4 gunshots were then heard. Okay, so he says that he's on the live stream saying people are trying to enter the house again. And then 3 or 4 gunshots are heard, followed by a pause. Then came 6 more shots. Even before the gunshots, Mays repeatedly made remarks about how a potentially chaotic situation was brewing. This house is going to come down, Mays said. I'm telling y'all, it's too many people. Around 11:15, police returned and determined that someone in the house and someone in the crowd had exchanged gunfire. No injuries reported. Over the next several hours, police established a perimeter around the house while the crowd grew in size and tension built. And then there was another live streamer, anti-police activist, Frank Nitty Sensabaugh, who began his own hours-long live stream. Sounds like a German name, so I don't know, white guy maybe? Yeah. But anyways, he can be seen trying to de-escalate things in the video, and then the police say, but it's not on the video, that members of the crowd started throwing bricks and pieces of concrete at them, and then around 3:15, the police perimeter vanished, and crowd members can be seen entering the home and breaking windows. One person ran up to Nitty's camera, claiming that a bloody pair of shorts he found in the home was evidence of a child being harmed there. And then riot police showed up at 3:50, and apparently they called for additional backup, but before it could get there, the crowd surrounded the rear of the house and set fire to it, along with a nearby car and a couch. And then firefighters came at 5:22, and just at that time, gunshots were fired from the crowd, injuring a boy and girl, both 14 years old. And, interesting. They don't mention at any point, like, what was up with these, like, what was up with that van and those kids. It doesn't say here in the journal, like, what was that part all about? Seems kind of an important part of the story.
That it was the people who were in the house, like, the residents of the house. I guess that's what the police claim. That they weren't kids, that they were, like, the people who lived there, that they were evacuating. This is an article that I read in, like, a while ago that I dug up again, that it was something that, intrigued me in terms of, like, thinking that there might be something to this. Yeah, this is what had made me think that there had only been one missing girl, because it's kind of focused on the mother of one of them. Celsey Perkins has been reunited with her teenage daughter after the girl was missing for 3 days earlier this week, but plenty of questions remain. This is, from June 26, 2020. Her 13-year-old daughter is one of the two that were believed to be spotted on Monday at a house at 2120 North 40th Street. A crowd gathered outside the triplex on Tuesday, and after the police temporarily walked away from guarding the house that evening, someone set fire to it. But Perkins said she was already reunited with her daughter at that point, with her and another missing teenage girl having been found 3.5 miles northeast of the 40th Street house after going missing on Sunday. My daughter said she walked a lot of places. She's saying she's been in this house. She's saying she wasn't in this house. She said she laid down, she woke up, and now she's saying she was never at this address, said Perkins. So to be honest with you, I don't know what's going on with this address. What I do know is there are a lot of children and a lot of parents affiliated with missing parents at the same address. This address was not just pulled up out of thin air. Perkins said her daughter told her she saw members of the Milwaukee Police Department 10 times while she was gone and talked to them once. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters to me is that my daughter is back home, she said. The Milwaukee Police Department did not try to find my daughter, and they did not find my daughter, said Perkins. The daughter's aunt, Kim Perkins, was called by an individual that saw girls near North 9th Street and West Ring Street, where they were ultimately found on Tuesday afternoon. Police Chief Alfonso Morales was critical of the family on Tuesday night. We have not received the cooperation we expect from the family, he said at a press conference. He has described the scene that emerged as chaos. Perkins said she was not there when things escalated and was focused on finding her daughter. She said her daughter is okay. She's been back home 2 days already and I'm still exhausted, said Perkins. Perkins addressed the media for approximately 2 minutes during a press conference held by Vaughn May's Community Task Force MKE organization before walking away. I'm grateful for the people that actually did get out and look for my daughter, she said. May said the situation is an example of the broken relationship between the police and the community. That's something that I think that, the people who would, debunk this and just take the police at their word, aren't accounting for. But anyway, Mays and the activist Corey Kirkwood said the community attempted to provide information to the police department, but the police didn't act on it. Search the house, actually do an investigation, you will find what we are talking about, said Mays. But that's no longer possible as both the house and a van parked next to it were destroyed in a fire. The van was destroyed as well. The police department in a statement said it searched the house both Monday and Tuesday before it burned and did not find any evidence that either of the girls were there. The preliminary investigation revealed that no information had been provided to MPD to suggest that teenagers were at the residence that was set on fire or that any foul play occurred at that location, wrote the department on Wednesday. The MPD interviewed both teenagers who denied going to or being at the residence and denied meeting or knowing anyone who lived at that residence. There is also no evidence to substantiate that human trafficking occurred at that location. Mays said there was evidence found by those who went into the house that many children were living there, but Mays himself did not accompany those searching the place. If they, the police, would have spoken to the neighbors the same way, they would have known that these things were going on at that location, said Mays. He expressed frustration that the department stepped away from the house, allowing people to ultimately set it on fire. You were there, you could have stopped it, he said to the police. He said he spent much of the day there and put out small fires. But Mays and Ken Perkins both said the house is just one of many in the area that have kids coming and going. Mays said 2 other boys were found in another house nearby that neighbors told the group to check. Mays said that additional parents and families would be coming forward to tell stories about the North 40th Street home. People come and tell us stuff they wouldn't tell the police, he said. So, I feel like there's definitely a fair amount of murkiness around that. Whether or not the particular thing that sort of set off these protests and caused the house to be burned down and led to these events, whether those girls actually were at the house, it seems like it wasn't just sort of completely as the mother said out of nowhere. It seems like that was sort of a known phenomenon in this community.
Yeah, a lot of people, that's sort of why said that this house is known for being connected to missing children.
Yeah, and it's just
That's
one
a
of many.
reputation to have.
Exactly. So it seems like people converged upon that house, like based on sort of past experiences or sort of circulating views about the house. And yeah, and I mean, I also something that I get is like kind of an unmistakable impression from this that the police like didn't take it seriously to begin with, that they were kind of dismissive of. I mean, it's not clear if the girls ran away, like maybe they did. Who knows like what the circumstances are? It's very unclear, but it seems like they definitely treated this differently than I feel like they would have treated something else in a different context. I definitely feel like there might be like a little bit of a race component.
Definitely didn't get the Gabby Petito treatment.
No, it certainly didn't. I feel like, it's that classic situation where you have like a 13-year-old black girl being treated like she's 21 or something, whereas like if a 13-year-old white girl goes missing, that is definitely Amber Alert worthy. It's not like assumed that like, yeah, well, you just are a bad parent, so like she obviously just wandered away. So, something like, and I also feel like they weren't like taking what the community said seriously and were just generally dismissive of them and maybe more concerned with like, protecting something else. I don't know.
I'm looking at the, of course, USA Today has a fact check article debunking all of this and said, but it's always interesting when, the tack they take when they're trying to debunk. So they say one of the claims was that the mother tracked her missing daughter's phone to a registered sex offender's home, which presumably was this house. And USA Today says it is not entirely clear how the group ended up at the house. Many of the theories circling online echo this part of the claim. It is unclear if the mother was even at the house that morning or how the house is identified. But the essential part of the piece of the claim is that it was the home of a registered sex offender. It was not, but a review of the Wisconsin Sex Offender Registry revealed no sex offenders listed at the house in question. One registered sex offender, however, was listed as living in a house next door. Okay, so I mean, there was a registered sex offender literally in the next house, but I don't know. The another line they debunk is the cops were already there protecting the house. This line takes nearly all the context out of the situation. And apparently, I mean, they found like the owner of the house or the renter or whatever, and apparently she was at the hospital giving birth to her baby, like while all of this was going on, and her house got burned down. And she lived there with I guess her partner, a guy, and like, but somebody shot. I mean, I guess if people are bursting into your house randomly, all pissed off, like trying to hunt pedos, like maybe you would pull out your gun and shoot at them or something.
Yeah, or the police would, if they were there guarding the house at that time.
Yeah. So, God, they really don't say that much. They just say, our ruling false. We rate this claim, all caps, false. Based on our research, the Post spins a series of unfounded allegations into a conspiracy theory that simply does not hold water. Well, okay. But if you Google Milwaukee sex trafficking, it pops up all these things about like, why is Milwaukee one of the largest sex trafficking hubs in the entire country? Like it kind of does have a reputation. I think there was one NGO that, I mean, even if I just typed in Milwaukee sex trafficking. So I see just from 2021, federal jury finds Milwaukee men guilty of sex trafficking. 2 Milwaukee men indicted in sex trafficking conspiracy. Milwaukee sex trafficking epidemic. I guess it's the 6th largest hub of sex trafficking in the entire U.S. Judge sentences Milwaukee man to 45 years for sex trafficking. Sex trafficking.
Yeah, I think I came across that stat when I was looking into this back in the summer.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're listening to the actual people that live in this neighborhood, they seem to be well aware that there's a problem with this shit in Milwaukee, and the cops
are
don't
in on
seem
it,
particularly
basically
interested. Yeah, and like, what are they protecting? Maybe I mean, even if this exact like those girls weren't in this house, and maybe it's just like these random people. I just don't know. I feel like there was more to it. And I guess we'd have to go back and look at all like the Facebook live streams or stuff because there weren't any articles really written about it. They did catch the guy who set the house on fire, a 32-year-old named Joshua Lusk, who I think is now in Milwaukee prison. And he got federally charged for burning the house down, which feels like, I don't know, like, is that a federal crime to burn down a house?
I mean,
like,
I guess
to commit
maybe
arson?
if you,
like,
really destroy, like, I think if you destroy a certain amount of property, maybe, like, I guess there's a way that it could be considered to go up to, like,
I looked up this house on Zillow though, and its last like appraisal or sale was I think in like 20. I think it was last sold in 2012, and it was put on the market in like 2018, but it didn't sell, and it was bought for like $13,000, and then now it's worth like 45. So not an expensive house, like an old house. I don't know what exactly, what kind of neighborhood is, but. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like the community, I kind of trust their impulses a little bit, even if they were, wrong. And just like not trusting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, regardless of like these particular girls and like what happens to them, like it seems like that, I don't know. I wouldn't think that definitely there is a phenomenon, even if there was something to this particular house, which I kind of doubt. I almost feel like there must be something to the suspicion of this house.
I did see videos of people going into the house and taking pictures and stuff.
Like
what was
they did
in there.
seem to
and I mean,
find
it
like
could have
kids
just been
stuff.
kind
Yeah,
of
I
like,
remember. Right.
Yeah, it was kind of like like dirty mattress on the floor, like trash everywhere, like little I don't know, empty fucking baloney packages. Like kids' toys, like it didn't look like the greatest kind of situation, and you could definitely spin it that maybe it was some kind of like trap house kind of thing going on. I don't know.
Well, that kind of was, I think, the idea.
The woman
like
whose house it
I came across
was.
this write-up, which I think, is just kind of like an independent, Medium article type write-up, but it says the media world is constantly on fire with scandalous tales of people like the late billionaire, financier, sex criminal Jeffrey Epstein, and more recently the widespread protests in the wake of the murder of George Floyd have garnered nonstop attention. However, at the intersection of sexual violence near the heart of power and police reform/abolition is a little big story that has only been covered by local news as of now. If you turn on CNN, I'm sure you'll get analysis of the president's latest tweets instead of the horror that broke to the surface of Milwaukee on June 23rd. For those of us not currently in Milwaukee, including myself, last day came as an incredible shock. According to sources following the case on social media, it seems that the coalition of community members uncovered a set of homes at 40th and Lloyd that were trafficking missing black children, apparently at the behest of both the church, local police, and registered sex offenders. The strange story does not end or begin there. Something truly sinister is happening, and this is only a fragment. The massive story begins with an unfortunately common incident. A young black child went missing on Sunday, June 21st. This was not the first, nor this was an isolated incident, as other families began to suspect that someone was behind this. According to a tweet by someone following the case, the parents had contacted authorities who had stonewalled, saying that the child was not endangered. As a result, no Amber Alert was ever issued for what became 2 children missing. On Tuesday, June 23rd, the mother of one of the missing girls was able to ping the cell phone of one of the missing girls to a 2-story townhouse in Milwaukee. So that was debunked in the article that you found, right? Like you had said that was not true, but
well, it said it was debunked that there wasn't a sex offender registered person living at that address, but it said that was what the claim was. And
did
then
they say the cell phone?
Actually, yeah, the way it's worded is kind of
because I heard, was that?
Yeah, let me look at that real quick, because that might be a sneaky little like dodge of talking about.
Yeah.
Well, did she ping the cell phone? Let me see. Where did it go? The house is set on fire. Okay, piece by piece, they're caught on camera. Yeah, a mother. Yeah, so what it says is that it's unclear. So it's the quote their claim, the quote they're testing is, a mother tracked her missing daughter's phone to a registered sex offender's home. And they say it is not entirely clear how the group ended up at the house. And many of they do that thing you love where they hyperlink every single word in the sentence. So many of the theories circling online echo this part of the claim. And so I haven't looked at all of those, but it says it is unclear if the mother was even at the house that morning or how the house was identified. But the essential part of this piece of the claim is that it was the home of a registered sex offender. It was
all
not.
the more reason
of the
to be suspicious, because if it was not the home of a registered sex offender, then like why does it have this sinister reputation? Because you could almost say that if a registered sex offender lived there, then it could be like an urban myth, you know, it could spiral out into an urban myth that like, oh, you know, this is a trafficking hub. But if it's not, like, why would it acquire that association? It almost seems like requiring more of an explanation.
Well, but yeah, I know, you're right. Well, because other people said this place is known. And so you know, they say here, this is really the downfall of the fact checkers here. They say a review of the Wisconsin Sex Offender Registry revealed no sex offenders listed at the house in question. One registered sex offender, however, was listed as living in a house next door. So they're kind of like obfuscating this a little. Right. They're mixing a couple things together and then just saying it's all false. But what it sounds like
and
is
according to this article, it was like a series of homes, a set of homes at 40th and Lloyd. So not, you know, just one particular home, a set of them.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, that makes sense, especially because these homes are like $40,000. Like, they're very cheap. They could be owned by the same property manager or something. I'm looking at it right now. There really is, like, there's kind of just one house on the other side of it, which must be where the sex offender lived. But they're kind of crossing the wires there because they're saying it's unclear. They're basically saying they can't debunk that the mother looked up on her phone and saw the location basically on this block. And you know how GPS is. It doesn't always accurately drop
I've never
the
used
pin
Find My
on.
Phone, but
So
it
maybe
seems like it would be something that would not be super precise.
Yeah, no, it's like that. I mean, especially if your house is like a little far away from the street, like it can get kind of fucked up. So either way, like what they're holding up there is like she looked up, she saw the phone little dot on this house and then like looked up whether or not there were sex offenders living there and found out that there were, but that's not true. So this whole story whole part of the story must be made up by somebody.
I hate it when they go in with like a foregone conclusion and then like they are able to like slightly correct one aspect of it. Like, it reminds me of that thing on Snopes about the, like, Douglas MacArthur giving a speech about how in the future we would fight aliens, like, at West Point in a certain year. And they're, like, absolutely, categorically, unequivocally false. He gave a speech saying that at West Point, and he gave a speech in this year, but not at West Point in this year. False, debunked, you know, like, well...
But he did give a speech talking
exactly
about future
twice,
alien
actually.
wars.
Once in that year and once at West Point, but not both. So that it's debunked, false, wrong, like 100 Pinocchios.
Sorry, false.
You know, like...
That's amazing, though. So, I mean, it sounds like that there's all kinds of possibilities of what could have happened where maybe she did do Find My Phone and it went to this house, and then maybe because this... As other people said, this house has a reputation in the community for being fucking sus. People said, oh, that's like a sus sex trafficking house. And so that's what got maybe mistranslated into we know that a sex offender lives there, like a registered sex offender. Instead of like, this is a sus like house full of, who knows, like druggies or pedos or, you know, something weird is going on there. It has a reputation. So in that sense, like, it would make a lot of sense how a lot of people in the community, if they heard that, oh my God, like her phone was pinged to this house that's like sus and notorious, that, hey, that would kick everything off. But then, you know, USA Today comes in and like, well, actually, like technically it, and also the fact that there is like a registered sex offender next door. Who knows? Maybe it pinged to... I don't know, but then I guess they would have burned down the house next door. But clearly, this place had a reputation already.
This article in the Milwaukee Independent that I've been reading from, you know, syndicated article in the Milwaukee Independent continues to say. So after, you know, that whole thing about pinging the phone, it goes on to say, like, you know, the child was not in danger, blah, blah, blah. So the mother, along with several others, went to the property in addition to calling police, who ignored them for 10 hours. An attempted entry was made, and someone from within the house shot at the group. So I guess it wasn't a police officer. I mean, I guess it could have been, because they were forewarned, and they apparently just ignored them.
They were forewarned. Wait. So that's kind of a big detail that the mother was part of the group that was trying to break into the house first and got shot.
Yeah, according to this.
That seems pretty significant.
Again, they say, like, it's unclear if she actually went there, but according to this write-up, she did go there. Or, one of the mothers did. So the Shaws got a quicker response on the phone call, and police then arrive at the scene, they say. The people within the home were taken into custody immediately after the report from people on the ground starts to diverge from the police and media narrative. After the arrests were made, a crowd began to form at 40th and Lloyd, and cops began to circle the original location, as well as a second location that was deemed to be connected. That's probably their house. Many social media posts and live streams began to spring up. During this time, a search party of people recovered the two girls from the location. So that was like a different location, apparently, that they were at.
Wait,
they weren't necessarily at this one. But the pictures and videos that were recovered by the search party were heartbreaking. While inside, several unknown people were taken into custody anonymously via tarps and placed into an unmarked van. I think that's what you were describing in the video. The police claimed the owner of the property escaped, and yet people on the ground claimed that he had fled to the van parked in the second property. Sometime after, protesters noticed a fire in the second location as well as in the van. While police claimed the protesters started the fire, people on the ground had not yet entered the van or second property, where police were first on the scene. In an attempt to salvage evidence, people entered the home and found several documents already burned near the center of the blaze. Some papers were recovered, including what was allegedly, since the document has not been released, a schedule of what time the girls were solicited out, the name of someone who was connected to the operation. It is believed that the name was of the property owner, Mike Barch, a disaster recovery specialist who had been working as a spiritual leader for children at local youth camps.
What?
This person serves as a senior board member of the group and has been working with them as far back as 2014, though he does have other ties to local Lutheran groups. Another identity recovered was the name of Roderick Bowie, a registered sex offender, who had apparently been in repeated contact with the trafficked people. There were 20 missing children suspected of having been sent through that home, according to people familiar with the area. One girl was found nearby in October, and police had apparently refused to investigate further out of a lack of evidence, even though bloody clothes had been found in the area. The home has been politely scrubbed by their former realtor in an attempt to further obfuscate this tangled web, though online archives were available. A short time later, riot cops came to the location and began attacking people who were stationed outside this area. Despite overwhelming evidence that there was a trafficking organization, the police shot rubber bullets and tear gas at the people attempting to investigate. Due to the infinite compassion of the people there, no officers were harmed, and firefighters began to put out the blaze as people drew back. Finally, the media began to arrive with the helicopters to survey the area. The first write-up about the story to appear online came from the local ABC station. The article was only 18 sentences long and repeated nearly verbatim what the police had said. For the 20 or more black children, they got less than a sentence each for their stories. Their names and families will be plastered all over local news forever, and yet not a single breath was given to the people behind the trafficking operation. Out of respect for the little black girls whose lives will be forever changed by this ordeal in numerous ways, I refuse to print their names to make them part of the spectacle. As for the Milwaukee PD, their first media soundbite was that we have not confirmed that the girls were found because they said they have not been contacted. Police Chief Alfonso Morales claimed that no evidence of trafficking had been found and that the unruly mob will be investigated as well. In a theater world where black bodies murdered by police are constantly on display, this brief peep show into the dark underbelly of a trauma cabaret shows that police are, at best, not on the side of communities they claim to protect. They may also be actively serving interests directly against the towns that their badges empower them to protect. Maybe. I mean, certainly, I wouldn't dismiss any of that at all.
Right? That was a very different telling of that story, just with little switches in the deal. What was the guy's name? Mike Barch?
Yeah, I think so. Barch was definitely the last name.
Send me that article. What the fuck? He was a landlord of that building that got burned down.
Yeah, apparently. Well, he was apparently one of the names that was found like on a list or something. It's that's kind of what they indicated. I'll post it in the chat.
So I think they must be, maybe are they talking about the house next door?
They definitely were talking about the house next door, but the one that was lit on fire was the one they went into where they recovered this information, including the name of that guy.
Really?
And the other one.
Holy shit.
According to,
I mean, yeah, not the thing you want to just dismiss out of hand. as, oh, this is ridiculous. You
as
know,
far as I can tell, there's nothing to it.
Is going on.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what kind of dark secrets are being kept.
I mean, yeah, when you're not like
Milwaukee.
on the ground and you're at a remove, like you can only, go by, you can only choose what narrative to go by when there are competing ones. And in this case, it does seem like stories diverge dramatically, It kind of, it reminds me of like those early stories where like Sufi leaders or marabouts who would be enslaved in the Americas, they would perform sort of rituals to try to help the people that they were captured with to escape back to Africa. And so those sort of legends started to circulate of like these, sinister dervishes like leading slaves into the river and where they would drown, telling them that they were going to escape, but actually they would be going to the river. And, people sort of find that to be like an appealing story in a certain way, or they think it's interesting that like, they committed suicide as an act of resistance. But really, like, if you think about it, what seems to have happened is that like the slave masters like perpetuated the suicide version to like scare people away from those type of leaders, those type of movements, to say like actually what's going to happen is you're going to end up dead. These people are going to lead you to your death, not to escape.
Like Jonestown. Like Jonestown.
Well, I think in the case of Jonestown, you shouldn't necessarily have trusted Jim Jones, but there's clearly like a black version and a white version. The black narrative of escape and the white narrative of death and suicide. And you kind of
I mean Jim Jones in the sense of like I mean the sense of like Jim Jones like reinforcing that thing.
Oh
that
yeah,
slave
exactly.
owners would like
yeah,
to tell
yeah.
you that like this is what happens if you follow a charismatic leader who wants to liberate you. Of
That's
course,
what happens
like,
if you're
genuine.
a leftist.
Also,
you end up drinking Kool-Aid and dying.
Yeah, supporting Assad and drinking Kool-Aid and dying. The last thing I'll say about Milwaukee is that I think we'll probably have to do a whole ep on him one day, but. The Jeffrey Dahmer case, I remember there was some pretty sketchy, weird fucking things going on with that, particularly with the police department. Wasn't there a victim of Jeffrey Dahmer who like escaped from his apartment and like ran out in the middle of the street? Like, I don't know if he's naked or something, but real horror movie shit, like screaming and like ran up to a cop.
This sounds vaguely familiar.
And was like, help me. I'm being like held captive by this guy. And the cops like gave him back to Jeffrey. Jeffrey Dahmer was like, oh, he's just like drunk or something.
I vaguely remember this. It might just be because
they're like, okay, you can go back, and then he killed him.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah. The John John Balcherak or Sorry, I'm getting my Polish wrong. But John Balcerzak or Balcerzak was the president of the Milwaukee Police Association. He and Joseph T. Gabrish first came national attention in 1981 when they were fired for having handed over an injured child to serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer despite bystanders' protests. Okay, so there's like fucking precedent here for like there's a child like in a dangerous situation. There's like bystanders being like, don't give the child back to Jeffrey Dahmer. And the cops are like, nah. So the two cops got fired, but they did appeal their termination and were subsequently reinstated with a back pay of $55,000 each by a local judge. So, yeah, there were 3 women discovered the victim, 14-year-old Conorak Synthesymphone, after he managed to escape from Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment, naked, bruised, bleeding from his buttocks area, and heavily under the influence of drugs. Childers called 911. A fire department ambulance was sent. Balcerzak, Gabrish, and Perubkun. Why does everyone in this name have like a strange, like ethnically ambiguous name? Oh, he was Laotian. Okay, never mind. Take that back. But even Perubkin, like what kind of name is that? Anyways, the fire department of ambulance arrived at the scene first. And ambulance personnel thought Conorak needed treatment, but the medical team was sent away by the officers. Though the Laotian immigrant had been in the country for 10 years and spoke English fluently, in his drugged and brain-injured state, Conorak was unable to communicate his situation to the authorities or to the 3 women. Dahmer convinced the police that the boy was his 19-year-old lover against the protests of the 3 women. Smith recognized the boy from the neighborhood, and the three women reiterated their concerns to the officers, but were told to, quote, shut the hell up by the officers, who seemingly believed the incident to be a domestic dispute. The three officers returned Conorak to Dahmer's apartment. Balcerzak said he smelled nothing unusual, but Gabrish said he did detect an odor reminiscent of excrement, which emanated from the decaying corpse of a previous victim in the bedroom, but made no attempt to investigate. The officers listed the incident as a, quote, domestic squabble between homosexuals. Within an hour after they left, Dahmer murdered, performed oral sex on the corpse, and dismembered the boy. Later, for Synthesophone's murder, as well as 16 others from 78 to 91, Dahmer would serve 15 consecutive terms of life imprisonment, and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean, there was a big scandal about these cops doing that. There was a released audio tape of the officers making homophobic statements to their dispatcher and cracking jokes about having reunited the, quote, lovers. The officers did not check Dahmer's identification. Had they done so, they would have discovered that Dahmer was a sex offender previously convicted for molesting Synthesophone's older brother, who was 13 at the time in 1988. The city of Milwaukee later paid the boy's family a sum of $850,000. And now he is the president of... let me see. Or he was this guy later became the president of the Milwaukee Police Union from 2005 to 2009, in addition to being reinstated. So, like, that's the background that we're talking about here of, like, this city. As, like, there's a dirty legacy with the cops, particularly in Milwaukee, of literally, handing over a drugged, bleeding, naked, like, teenager.
Well, yeah, even beyond the
to
level
one of the most notorious
like,
serial killers of the last
theory,
30 years.
There is the faceless maw of the fact that they don't give a shit, like, about certain people. Like, it's definitely true. Like, yeah. Well, you can definitely see the pattern.
Yeah,
like,
so
even in the
homosexuals in
mainstream
the 80s,
reporting, like, they don't take it
who
seriously.
cares?
They don't care. They're, like, dismissive, and they assume that it's bullshit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. So, we just got to stay vigilant and believe the people. If there's a we're so everything's
a witch
mob
hunt.
phobic now. Like angry mob phobic. I'm not saying like go out with your pitchforks. Yeah, it's like it's a witch hunt. That's literally kind of what they're saying. Like I don't know. I mean, apparently this woman who is literally in the hospital giving birth to a baby, when her house was burned down. Maybe that's just what the story is, and this angry mob was out of control, et cetera, et cetera. But the last source you read of that narrative sounds like they had very good reason to suspect that something
they
really
certainly
fucked
didn't
up was
seem
happening in this house. The
Wasbappin
girls
level
might be in
crazy,
there.
and it seems to
And
be
sure, maybe
heavily
they
corroborated
weren't.
by a lot of people. Like, maybe they're wrong about certain
Right.
things, but it does definitely seem like there's something to it. And the phenomenon of Milwaukee, as you said, as like a trafficking hub, is definitely true.
Yep, exactly. So don't be so quick to dismiss, y'all. Let's be, let's.
You know what's interesting?
What?
I was looking up Mike Barsh, just trying to see if I could find anything else about him. And I found this other article dealing with a fire at Mike Barsh from 2018. It says, heating tools on scaffolding may have ignited the roof of historic Milwaukee church. The blaze destroyed Milwaukee's historic Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church may have been started by heating tools that had been placed on adjacent scaffolding and ignited the roof, a Milwaukee Fire Department official said Wednesday. Milwaukee Deputy Fire Chief Dave Vostis said that was the working theory, but Fire Chief Mark Ruffling stressed at a news conference later that the investigation is ongoing. We know there were roofers there and they had equipment, and we know it started in the roof. I'll just try to get to the part so we can move on where Mike Barsh comes in.
Oh, I finally got his name spelling right. Oh my God. I'm seeing some stuff here.
Comes in to talk about his feeling for the Lutheran Church.
Burned home had 27 police service calls. I'm seeing here from urbanmilwaukee.com.
I saw that as well.
Yeah,
it didn't seem like it was, it seemed like most of them were from those past few days. The calls.
It says 27 times in 4 years.
Yeah, but they were mostly like for not what you would like necessarily associate with like sex trafficking. Like there were some that like truancy, something like that, domestic concerns. So maybe
there's a community organizer named Frank Nitti who said, before we came out here, there were 9 kids missing. After we came out here, 4 kids were returned. Said Frank Nitti, narrating a live video on Facebook from the scene. But the number of kids returned might only be 2. Okay. Well, okay. The triplex at 2120. Let's see. The calls, most of which took place in 2019, including everything from, quote, family trouble and welfare check to shots fired and battery domestic violence. Other calls were for property damage, a stolen vehicle, 2 traffic stops in front of the home, and a truancy check. At least 3 of the calls were initiated by the city's automated shot spotter system, which triangulates the sounds of gunfire and automatically generates a call for service. In 9 of the cases, the department listed the status as unable to locate complainant. Interesting. Morales, the cop, did say at a press conference there were people removed from the resident, but of course it was just the residents. Even though one of them was in the hospital giving birth to a baby, so like how many other people live there? So the company that owns it is 40 Street 2120 LLC, which lists Michael Barch as its registered agent. Yeah, it was listed for sale for $42,900. He owns at least 2. Oh yeah, there's a call log here. I see. Yeah, trouble with suspect. So I don't know. It's like a lot of battery, domestic violence. There's like 3, 4, 5. I mean, he might just be, I don't know, problematic term, like a slumlord kind of thing. But this guy, he owns like a disaster management company.
Yes, he's a disaster recovery specialist. My computer's bugging out right now.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah. I noticed
trouble,
my
like in terms of.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, Barch Management LLC, and Roderick Bowie. Don't know what his. There's a lot of stuff on Trellis about Roderick Bowie, Fresno, Santa Clara. Yeah, not sure what that is, but anyways, it's a dark rabbit hole. That you see, was a youth minister.
Yeah, he was a part-time WEL's pastor at Calvary Lutheran Church. They said that he had more substantive connections to like children's programs on that Milwaukee Independent article. But yeah, he's a disaster recovery specialist. And this article did have an interesting paragraph about him.
What
but
is
like now it's like
damage, restoration, and cleaning services. Okay, I mean, not to cast any reckless, accusations at anybody, but he owns he works for a cleaning service like company. Like if you needed somebody to totally clean a house of any like evidence, or a damaged house or something. Maybe that's totally normal.
Well, yeah, it's odd that he also came out like to this burned church to like lend support to the Lutheran community.
Oh, okay, so he wasn't involved in the burning of the church itself. Well,
it was unclear what was like. Again, I want to read this portion from the article, but like all of a sudden,
I see.
Giving me fucking trouble like loading. But maybe when
it's ironic that he works for ServPro, but like his house got burned down because they specialize in fire damage restoration. Wow, you know what their ad is when you type it in on Google? Like it never even happened. ServPro Restoration Services.
That's quite something.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, they're a nationwide company.
I can find this on a different source. It says, all right, I finally found at least an excerpt of it. The acrid smell of smoke hung in the air as onlookers gathered to mourn what had been the spiritual home to generations of the faithful in Milwaukee's Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod. I'm here out of the love of the Lutheran Church and its history, said the Reverend Mike Barsh, a disaster recovery specialist and part-time, pastor, WELS pastor at Calvary Lutheran Church, a WELS congregation on Milwaukee's north side. The blaze that destroyed Milwaukee's historic Lutheran Church appears to have been started by heating tools that had been placed on adjacent scaffolding and ignited the roof. estimated damage is 13 million with an additional 4 million in damage to its contents. Interesting. Just interesting that happens to be like one of the hits you get from Mike Barsh. Maybe it's because people were kind of trying to find like suspicious things with him, so that's why you know it comes up associated with his name.
And you know, landlords
people have visited that a bunch
doing
of times.
shady things all the time, so it's kind of par for to be expected to some degree, but still extremely odd shit going on there. Yeah,
definitely worth delving into further.
Yeah.
Alright, so Lukman asks, any thoughts or interesting traditions you've encountered about Khidr, alayhi salam, especially interested in how he might connect to traditions of an immortal green man in other cultures. I mean, that's true. Like, the idea of an immortal green man is a pretty transcultural thing. For whatever reason, there definitely is. I guess maybe it's because the idea of greenness has a sense of life, like plants that are alive are green. So maybe there's a association between greenness and immortality. For people who don't know,
could you enlighten the koofs like myself out there who don't know what Khidr is?
Khidr is basically his name means the green, pretty much. Like Al Khidr is what people might call him, or just Khidr. He's seen as like being a prophet in Islam, but it's like he's kind of a nebulous figure. There's a passage in the Quran, I forget exactly what surah it's in, but it's very famous. And in that, he's referred to as a servant of God, and he basically has kind of a interaction with Musa. But, well, he's not called Khidr in this part of the Quran, but he, people tend to read, Islamic exegetes tend to read this character, the servant of God, in this portion of the Quran as being Khidr. And basically what happens in that part of the Quran is that Musa sort of has like an apprenticeship with this servant of God, and he instructs him, like, whatever you see me do, you have to be patient. You had to forbear and be patient with me. And Musa sees him do like all sorts of shit that seems like incredibly... It's kind of like about the problem of evil in a way, because Musa sees him do all this stuff that seems like totally, out of pocket, if you will. Like I'm trying to think of the exact things that he does. I know that he sinks a ship, like he causes a ship to sink, and he like kills like a kid or something. Like he kills like someone's son. I'm trying to find the exact passage from the Quran so I can like read a version of it.
Like for no reason.
Well, that's what Musa is like all upset about. He's like, and this is basically like, it's kind of a permutation of the Abraham and Isaac story. It's like
and Musa, just to clarify, like, is that the Islamic name for Moses?
Yes, that's Moses.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So Moses pretty much Musa is like kind of each time it kind of escalates the different things that he's doing. I'm trying to see if there's like what chapter is it? I'm getting like paraphrases of it, but I'm not finding the actual thing. Blah blah. All right, well here's like a version. This is blah blah. Moses said to him, "May I follow you, so that you may teach me something of the truth which you have been taught." Let's see. Yeah, and he keeps telling him, bear with me, be patient. So yeah, they set forth, and he made a hole in the boat, in a boat, and he said, "Have you made a hole to drown those who are in it? Verily, you have done a dreadful thing." And Khidr, or the servant of God, answered, "Did I not tell you that you will not be able to bear with me or be patient with me?" And Musa said, "Do not be angry with me for my forgetfulness, and pardon me for my fault." So he keeps doing these kind of things, and Khidr has told him, like, you won't be able to put up with being like following me and looking sort of being apprenticed to me to try to learn this higher truth, or this higher knowledge. Yeah, it's a very strange passage of the Quran, because it sort of begins with this weird part about a fish. Like, this is before any of the story happens. This part is like, very bizarre and kind of must have some kind of esoteric meaning. And people wrangle a lot over exactly what this is all about. But, Musa said unto his servant, "I will not give up until I reach the point where the two rivers meet, though I spend years and years in travel." So he's kind of on this quest trying to find, greater knowledge. And he reached the point where the two rivers meet, and they forgot their fish. And it took its way into the water, swimming at will. When they had gone further, Moses said unto his servant, "Bring us our meal. Truly we are worn out with traveling." The servant replied, "Did you see what happened when we were resting on the rock? I forgot the fish, and none but Satan made me forget to mention this to you. The fish made its way into the sea in a miraculous fashion." Musa said to him, "This is what we have been seeking." So they got to like a point where, you know, he mentions Satan, but it's not the power of Satan that makes the fish come to life. He's blaming Satan for making him forget to mention Moses' servant. And that's Moses' servant, not Khidr, the servant of God. So this is someone who he's journeying with, and they're in search of Khidr at the beginning. And so, you know, I've kind of told the story totally out of order, but I remember this part that like is kind of interesting. So when they get to the point where they think they might find Khidr, this fish that they have like prepared to eat like comes to life and jumps into the water. So they've crossed like this weird threshold where they're kind of in this liminal domain where like, you know, they're kind of in the maybe the Tir Nanog, you know, like to go off of Luqman's sort of suggestion of a parallel between Khidr and sort of green man type figures in other mythologies. You know, they've gotten into this sort of different sort of space where they've crossed some kind of threshold where somehow this dead fish has been returned to life. So yeah, then what I said happens. You know, Moses says like, "May I follow you so that you may teach me something of the truth which you have been taught." And Khidr's like, "You're not going to be able to deal with it. You won't be able to be patient." And Moses says, like, "If Allah wills, you will find me patient, and I won't disobey you in anything." But of course, he's not able to do that because, like, you know, he sees him, like, drill a hole in this boat, and he's like, "Why did you do that? What's your problem?" But then he says, like, "You got to be patient."
Trust the plan.
Trust the plan, exactly. And then he goes to the point where they find a young guy, and Khidr just, like, kills him. Or, you know, the servant of God who's equated with Khidr generally. And in the exegetical tradition, not in the Quran itself, like Khidr isn't mentioned in this portion, but people read this as being Khidr, so like in the Quran. And Moses says, "You have killed an innocent man who has done no harm. Surely you have done a wicked thing." And Khidr is like, "You know, I told you wouldn't be able to bear with me." And then, you know, they go to another city and they ask people for some food, but they decline to receive them as guests. They found a wall on the point of falling down, and, you know, Khidr just repairs it. And Moses says, "Well, if you wanted to, you could have demanded payment for your labor of fixing the wall." And Khidr is like, "All right, I'm done with you. Like, now is the time when we must part." Like, and so then he basically explains everything. And he says, like, you know, "As for the boat, it belonged to poor people working on the sea. I damaged it because there was a certain king after them who was taking every ship by force." So basically, by sinking the ship, he saved them from, like, getting, you know, like, pirated by the wicked king. And then this is, like, not necessarily a satisfactory explanation to, like, contemporary listeners, but, you know, "As for the youth, his parents are true believers, and we feared that he would grieve them with his wickedness and unbelief. And it was our desire that their Lord should grant them another son in his place, more righteous and closer in affection." So, again, not saying you should, like...
satanic fail son. You should murder your satanic fail son.
No, you should not murder your satanic fail son, because Khidr is operating at a different level. You know, he's not a human being. He's immortal. He's on some kind of other level, you know? So, like, in the same way that, like, people are like, if God real, why bad things happen? You know, like, that's kind of what the point is, you know? Like, why did the tsunami kill, like, my evil satanic son? You know, like, or something like that.
The cosmic balance is complicated.
He's a representation of, like, God's Qadr in a way, you know?
I see.
But, you know,
interesting.
And then he says, "As for the wall, it belonged to 2 orphan boys in the city whose father was an honest man. Beneath the wall, their treasure is buried. Your Lord desired that they dig out their treasure when they grew to manhood. I did not do it of my own accord. Such is the interpretation of those things which you were unable to watch with patience." Wow. So, you know, he's a representation of, like, everything. Basically, Khidr, like, in the broader Islamic tradition, like, stands in for, like, everything esoteric, like, everything hidden, you know, like, a lot of the time...
The divine mystery.
Yeah, a lot of the time, like, Sufi figures actually will say, like, "Oh, you know, I was taught these esoteric sciences by Khidr himself. You know, he was revealed to me, like, in this way." There's one... Yeah.
Has anyone ever thought if Khidr is a reptoid?
No one's ever suggested that he's a reptoid because he's green.
Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, he might be a leprechaun.
Well, they wear green, but they aren't green themselves.
Well, Khidr isn't necessarily supposed to be green. He might just be wearing green. It's, you know, the green man who you'd associate him with, you know, who many, you know, would compare him to, because he has certain attributes in common. Like, he is green. He's like a vegetable man, but Khidr, I think, is just like a man who wears green, usually. Okay. But he might have like a green tint to his skin in some renditions.
Ethical
but usually,
leprechaun.
if usually you see like a depiction of Khidr, it's just like a dude wearing green. He's not like green in his face, but
Okay.
he's known as the Green.
Okay.
There's a movie that recently came out, The Green Knight, right?
I'm not familiar with that one.
You didn't hear about that? The Green Knight with Dev Patel?
That sounds a little familiar.
It was like an A24 movie. It just came out. It's an adaptation. It's an adaptation of like actually like an older poem based on, I assume, like an older tradition. Where and I saw the movie, but I wasn't really honestly too impressed by it. Like it was like there was a CGI fox that didn't really look very good. Like that was a big fixture of the movie, and like they kind of like I thought it would have been like more interesting and like more mysterious and disturbing if they kind of cleaved a bit more closely to the actual story. But the story kind of actually has similar characteristics to that story from the Quran, where Gawain is one of King Arthur's knights, right? And they're all like chilling in the like or the round table or whatever on Christmas, and this random like knight who's like totally green, like a green man, basically like a vegetable man, shows up. And the depiction of the Green Knight in the movie actually does seem to be pretty accurate, to the poem and the tradition. And he shows up and he's like, let's play a game. Whoever, like, someone gets to strike me with one blow, but then I get to strike him the same way, whatever he did to me, a year later, or a year and a day later, something like that. And Sir Gawain, who's like, pretty brave as the knights go, he jumps up and he's like, I'll do it. And then he just like cuts off this knight's head in one blow. But then the knight picks up his head and is like, all right, so in a year, I'll do the same thing to you. Bye. And he's like, oh, shit. And then, he's on a journey and he comes to this house and he finds like a man and his wife. And it's like this weird, like kind of like sexual situation where like he makes some kind of deal with the proprietor of the house, like the lord of the house. Again, I'm just recounting this from memory, so I apologize if there's any kind of problems with it. But he makes some kind of or errors in my recounting, but I think I'm pretty much right. He makes some kind of deal with the lord of the house where like the lord of the house will hunt every day, and he'll bring whatever he catches of his hunt, like he'll share that with Gawain. But whatever Gawain gets at home in his house, he has to share with the lord of the house when he comes back. And so like the wife of the guy like actually like kind of like seduces him and like is like trying to kind of like I don't know if she like fully seduces him, but she kind of like she gives him a kiss at least. And I remember that Gawain has to kiss the guy, which is actually something that's like cut from the movie. It's interesting because like you'd think like in this day and age. Yeah, it struck me as odd because like in the movie, like Dev Patel is like, like the man even says like you received a kiss, like you and he like forces Dev Patel to kiss him or something. But in the actual poem, like Sir Gawain is just like, all right, I'm just gonna give this guy a kiss, like it's the norm. So it's actually was more woke in like whenever it was written like late medieval times or something. But anyway, so then like the wife eventually gives Gawain like a magical garter or something, like some kind of belt that protects him from dying, basically, that will like save him from getting killed by the Green Knight. And Sir Gawain is like, oh, well, he can't bear to share that or give that up to the guy. So he, just keeps it and conceals that he received it from him. So then he goes to meet the Green Knight, and the Green Knight, goes to swipe his head off, but it ends up just making like a slight little cut in his throat. And the Green Knight reveals himself as, of course, the Lord of the Manor was the Green Knight all along in disguise. And the whole thing was an elaborate test. And he's like, you're the most righteous knight, but like the one little cut that I made in your throat, that's for the fact that you hid that magical belt from me. Like, other than that, like, you're very upright and righteous, but because you committed that tiny little sin, you get this slight cut in your throat. And yeah,
well,
so
nobody's
but you can
perfect.
see how actually some of the themes are similar, like the idea of the immortal green man, like the test of like patience, even like the threefold repetition that happens, you know, because I remember in the house, you know, the wife gives him 3 things, he has to return 3 things, you know.
They
So
almost have a threesome, sounds like. Not
well,
really.
I feel like that would be more something that would happen in the 824 movie, but still didn't really happen in that movie.
Missed opportunity, it sounds like.
Yeah, so there definitely is like I mean, it's just because Khidr is a real phenomenon, you know, like people kind of look into these things, they try to find some kind of like sociological explanation, and I'm sure that you could construct one why that like there's a consistent idea of some kind of immortal green figure that has some sort of profound esoteric knowledge across different world traditions, but maybe there is just like some kind of deathless liminal green being who like can only be accessed by like the most spiritually enlightened and has a unique relationship with God. It's possible, you know. So yeah,
I'm just gonna say no investigation, no right to speak.
Yeah, no investigation,
I'll
no right to
defer to you on
speak.
that one. Yeah.
No, I mean, we really could do like a whole Khidr episode because there's really so many interesting Khidr stories. Just like I was looking up pictures of Khidr to see if there were any where he was depicted as actually being green in opposition to just wearing green clothing. But yeah, I'm seeing this miniature painting from a copy of a Book of Felicity. It's titled Alexander and Khidr Enter the Land of Darkness, and you know, it's showing Khidr accompanying Alexander, venturing into, you know, the land of darkness, or the land, you know, where there's no sun, searching for the fountain of life, you know. So it's kind of this idea of Khidr as being the guardian of immortality, and also of sort of subtle knowledge.
Cool. Well,
yeah,
right.
So that's who Khidr is.
That's Khidr.
And in terms of different connections, you know, definitely leprechauns, the Green Man. You can draw all these different parallels.
Swamp Thing, Shrek, the Green
Swamp Thing
Lantern.
basically is like a modern version of the Green Man. Yeah,
Right.
or Little Green Men.
Little
there's
green
a reason
men,
why
army men, or just
Army
little green men
men.
aliens. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess army men wear green to blend in, like to camouflage themselves with like the brush.
I mean,
so
they
that's
do,
kind of
but
why
like,
army
you know,
men
the
are green
cast
men.
iron army men are like all green. You know, they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
anyways,
you know, more like alien little green men because they're like sort of
Yeah.
liminal. That's like sort of what I was thinking.
Totally.
Had in
Yeah,
mind.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to move on to number 5
Sure.
now?
Word. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's me? Okay. Sir Brainy asks another question. They write simply susness of Amy Therese. Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like from the time when this question was posed, like she's probably become like so much susser.
Well,
where
I
it
have an
becomes
update.
almost-
I have an
Yeah.
update. I noticed something just from this week when we're recording of what's been going around. I believe she tweeted on October 13th. I think even since then, we did like her Mission to Mars episode. I think we brought up, you know, Amy and like Red Planet and stuff like that. And like Adrian Vermeule, you know, her biggest fan. But she wrote on October 13th, hey, remember when... I'm not going to do an Australian accent. It'd be fun. Hey, remember... No. Hey, remember when Richard Spencer triggered the feds for 5 straight years, helped undermine Trump, and gave the libs everything they needed, including the visual material and Genesis story for Biden to launch his Unity campaign, and then told the alt-right to vote for Biden? Thinking emoji. And then Richard Spencer quote tweeted that tweet later that morning and said, hey, remember when Amy Therese was an interesting idiosyncratic Marxist before she started regurgitating dumb right-wing talking points and conspiracy theories in an effort to play mommy to MAGA teenagers?
When you're right, you're right.
I did, yeah. I mean, broken clocks twice a day, right? You know, that's such the battle lines are so... This is some real, like, 5th-generation warfare battle lines here. Where
I feel like I haven't seen Richard Spencer on Twitter in so long. Like, this is the first I've seen of him in such a long time.
How is he not banned from Twitter? Like, that's weird, isn't it?
It is weird. It's because he's so dapper and presentable, you know.
I guess, yeah. I know he is the respectable edge of the white nationalist blade. That is very... He has a very sus background art on his profile that looks like kind of mystical, like Greek ruins or something. I don't know what kind of weird entryism thing that he's doing, but interesting little fight to be picking between Amy and Richard Spencer. I mean, what is Amy Therese sus? Like, maybe?
I feel like she's definitely getting Peter Thiel money at this point.
It feels that way, doesn't it?
And she's really, like, cozied up with some of the integralist people who we mentioned. Like, the connection that was sort of, like, developing between them when we did our episode about integralism has only, like, become, like, truly cemented. Like, they're BFFs now. Like, which is not something that you would have predicted, like, a couple of years ago when, like, Amy Therese was, like, a known quantity, like, still kind of a weirdo. Like, you would not have predicted that, like, if you knew Sohrab Ahmari and you knew Amy Therese, you would not think that they would have become BFFs, or, like, Vermeulen and Amy would be, like, podcasting together and, like, praising each other and, like, RTing each other every day. Like,
it's well, you know, it is this kind of, you know, you see a certain overlap, like the national conservatism kind of alliance, and I don't know. Yeah, I'm seeing another, like, a picture of, like, a kind of anime version of, like, Amy and, like, the little friends, Pepe, the baby Pepe. That was, I'll give the devil his due. A little funny to say, like, you're playing mommy to a bunch of MAGA teenagers. Like,
yeah. I mean, like, when you're right. I mean, that will, I guess it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel, because, like, it's just so obvious, like, what she's doing. I'm sure, like, you know, I mean, it's very tragic, like, when you get just, like, caught dead to rights and dunked on that hard by Richard Spencer. But
I don't know. Yeah, she is kind of COVID pilled, though. She is saying that a little while back, someone was speculating it looked like they were setting Dashik up to be the fall guy for the whole thing, quote tweeting Fauci throwing Peter Daszak under the bus. Maybe that's true. I mean, I remember I did listen to some What's Left. You know, I'll admit it. I'm not afraid. I remember around, like, the primary season, I feel like whatever previous, like, OS of, like, Amy was running back then, it was all focused on just, like, attacking Elizabeth Warren and her supporters.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, I mean, not very harmful thing to do. Kind of funny. But also sad that so many, like, DSA type people were, like, Warren curious. Remember that? God.
Yeah.
But also, you know, she's like, I don't know. Like, she calls herself a Marxist sometimes, but then spends a lot of time just, like, attacking, like, quote unquote, the left. I don't really like this conflation. I get what people are saying, like, these post-left people when they attack the left, but when they say, like, that's why I'm done with the left. Well, if you're taking the left as, like, a existing category, like, it's on a spectrum, so, like, where are you gonna go?
I mean,
like, are you gonna go right?
Any given one of these people might have a good point. Like, Vermeulen has, like, good tweets. Like, he does occasionally make good points. If Sohrab didn't block me, I mean, he maybe not so much, but I'm sure there's, like, every once in a while he has, like, a tweet that's correct, because this whole thing is, like, designed to, you know, like, filter people out into ideological camps. And, like, there has to be, like, some kind of, you know, value to both perspectives. Like, you know, one can't just be completely absurd. Like, you know, or obviously, like, she says things that are true or resonate, like, you know, all people do. Even Wasp Bappin, who is even more insane than Amy, like, you know, is capable of hitting on something true. But
I feel like especially back when he was, like, saying whatever the popular kind of party line was on, like, Syria in, like, maybe 2014, 2015, that a lot of people were like, he was probably doing quite well with his takes, because I don't know. I feel like he's always been as, like, you know, well, maybe I didn't know about him at that, like, when he was popular, like, if he ever, but I feel like he only ever was popular for being insane. Like, even if you, like, were in that camp, like, then, you know, or were pro-revolution or, like, a normie lib, like, you would not be down with Wasp Bappin, because he would be, like, insane by that standard. You know, he would, like, be sprinkling some extra level of, like, derangement on top of whatever he was saying that you might agree with. But anyway, my point is that, like, yeah, you know, like, all these people, like, you know, are obviously, like, right about certain things, but the fact is that, like, yeah, it's mostly about, as much as she would protest against this, it really is about, like, signaling alignment with a certain
team or faction, like, and being against the left and like thereby being on the right. Like, that's what I think Amy is really all about. Like, is just like counter signaling like quote unquote leftism and like partaking in like the culture war bullshit discourse.
Yeah, which I get that. I just, yeah, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I guess even ultra left has like a poison connotation to it. So it's not like I should say, why doesn't she call herself ultra left, or like, I don't know, the real left? Maybe that's just like lame and cringe as well. But I don't know, if you're gonna play around with calling yourself a Marxist, like, it seems to be that, I don't know, like she's making kind of tactical, like rhetorical alliances with like extremely far right wing people.
Well, but even the Josias people, like on the Josias website, you know, her, like I'm seeing an RT of Adrian Vermeule like on her Twitter right now as I'm scrolling it, and like on the Josias website, you know, the integralist hub online for him and for Pater Edmund and all these people, like, what's their motto again? It's like non declinavit sinestram et non dextram. You know, I don't decline to the right or to the left. Oh, you know, they're also like kind of in that sort of like post right left dichotomy, because like, you know, you might recognize them as being like, oh, you know, they're just like right wing because like all you do is like post MAGA shit and like you love Trump, and you know that's like your real ultimate alliance despite how much you signal otherwise. That's the thing, like it always breaks down this way. Like I saw before, like, you know, there's this creep Jack Murphy who is like this like polyamorous like you know, like Claremont fellow. He's like a fellow at the Claremont Institute because, and it's not even his real name, it's like some pseudonym that he made up like during Gamergate, you know, when he was cutting his teeth online in Gamergate, you know, and his whole thing is like, you know, he was like a pickup artist guy and he's all about like quote unquote like polyamory, and now like, you know, he's in a weird position where he kind of has to pretend that he's like trad while at the same time like not necessarily disavowing like his old stuff. And like all the like integralist people like Sohrab and Vermeule, like they all have to like, you know, throw in their lot with him, because really at the end of the day, like their ultimate allegiance, as much as they would say like it is to Mother Church or whatever, like it's really like they're just like totally captured by this bullshit culture war discourse, like 100%. And Amy is the same thing. That's why like even though you would think there would be significant differences between them, like they're fucking BFFs. You know, like I guess Amy now is like kind of trad curious, like maybe she's Catholic, I don't know, but
I don't know if she
maybe
is
she's
or
converting.
Not. She still does attack like the libtads, you know, quite a bit. Like she tweeted recently about how the president of the AFL-CIO is on the board of NED, enacting the imperatives of U.S. imperialism. They work hand in glove with the CIA. That's what this is. It's what it always has been. Like, not wrong.
Well, of course,
not wrong.
Well, no, and but all right-wing people do that. And like, yeah, so all right-wing people do that though, and all right-wing people like are correct. Like about a lot of stuff they would say, like, you know, a standard right-wing critique about Hillary Clinton, like probably like at least 75% of it, like would probably be like, you know, more or less right, you know, like roughly 75% of it.
I don't think most right-wing people, well, only people on the Tucker end of the more cutting-edge, like Tucker end of the spectrum, where they like criticize the CIA and stuff like that. But only,
Tucker
like,
is the most popular. Tucker is the most popular right-wing media figure. You know, the age of the neocon, like in terms of like the popular discourse, is like kind of like the only person I've seen like. I always think of how I saw on Jack Sarfati's Twitter that he was saying that Trump was good because Henry Kissinger like endorsed his foreign policy, and that was such like a dissonant thing to me that like no like normal Trump like supporter would ever do, because like his whole thing is being in opposition to that old style of neoconnery.
He's a globalist. So like what
exactly. Like that's so like out of like such a weird like out of touch thing to do, to try to like, you know, like that would not resonate with any other Trump supporter. But I feel like Tucker's wildly popular, and I think that like populism, the scourge of populism, like has become very mainstream on the right. And like, you know, I mean the thing about the right wing is that when they criticize the left, they mean like the woke tads and like, you know, the Marxists, like everyone's to the left of like Trump, basically. You know, like that's who they mean when they say the left. or like you know the Democrats and the Marxists, like who are really just Democrats. That's like what they think.
Which is,
and in fact, like you know, if you're an integralist, then maybe even China is like less of a woke tard and not really left wing. You know, only
sure.
the Democrats
I mean,
and like SJWs and
like,
Black Lives Matter are. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think there is like, you know, there's some China curiosity there. I wouldn't be surprised if like Richard Spencer was a little China curious, you know. But most of this is about culture war stuff. It's like I looking on our TL right now, and it's like mostly talking about woke tards and stuff like that, which is like, okay, yeah, fine. There are woke tards. Like, I totally get it. But yeah, I don't know. It just feeds into like this certain kind of this like culture war bullshit dynamic that it's like, even though she criticizes the dynamic itself, like also participates in it. And I feel like she has that in common with like other people in the spectrum, like Glenn Greenwald, who is like constantly, he's like, you know, like the 150 times he's been on Tucker, he's always kind of introduced as like, this guy's a leftist. But he's so fed up with these crazy woke people that he's coming on our show to like vent about it. But it's like he comes on like every week.
Yeah, like it's an amazing, it's an amazing grift, but you can only hold it up for so long. Like Dave Rubin started out that way, but he can't even really pretend that he's a liberal anymore. But he used to do that. He used to be like, look, I'm a liberal, but I'm just curious about some of this stuff, you know. But eventually, I remember watching some really funny clip of Dave Rubin where he's like, I will stand before you proudly today and say I'm a conservative, and like, you know, everyone's just silent, and he has to do like kind of like a Jeb Bush type like please clap thing, you know. No, like, but I think that what is missing from like the analysis of like Glenn Greenwald and like from Amy is like the awareness that it is like a fucking trap, and like it's meant to like piss you off, and like they try to create the situation on purpose. That's what I've increasingly come to feel. I was thinking about this. I tweeted about it, like, you know, but I really had like, the reason I tweeted about it is because I had a real moment of clarity, I felt, or like something that really pushed me further in the sort of direction that I've been leaning towards, where like the State Department like tweeted something that was like, it's International Pronouns Day.
Yeah, I saw that.
You know, with like and it's like, they knew what the result of tweeting that would be. How could they not? Like, they would have to be so dumb to not know what the reaction would be. That, like, overwhelmingly, it's not like, and also, like, the people who like that stuff aren't going to be like, yay, thank you, State Department. Like, you know, because generally, like, the he, hims, he, theys, like, of the world, like, they are also like not super jingoistic or like down with the U.S. military.
I don't know. I mean, look at I think it's spread throughout the as Amy would say, the professional managerial class. You know, the PNCs.
Yeah, kind of. But
basically, the point where like everybody has their pronouns. So I think like people that are like extremely like blue pilled and are just like in this house type people, like might be like that. See, like. I mean, I was watching CNN the other day, and like Don Lemon was just playing clips from that Biden town hall of just like not substantive things, but just like Biden making little jokes like, "Oh, I'm not going to make it all about me." You know, the Republicans don't like me. Oh, I'm not going to make it about me. I'm not going to make it about me. And then like Don Lemon's just like, "Wow, can you imagine that just a year ago we had a president that like, you know, can you imagine our previous president saying that? This is big. This is big." It's just like, shut the fuck up. Like, you know,
I mean,
like this is all performative.
I guess there are some,
it's all fake. Like,
there's some people out there like Charlotte Clymer who like maybe are like, wow, like my vice president has pronouns in her bio, like amazing. But I think that like your average like woke tad, especially on Twitter, like they are not like about to be like, thank you, like CIA, like, you know,
probably not.
You know, I mean, like, come on, like
not like a DSA person. Like a DSA person would probably be like, this is kind of like
exactly like even a
like,
DSA person would be like, yeah, this is like at the most at least pandering, you know. And I think that my point is, there's no way they didn't know that. For whatever like positive response they would get, and like they got a little bit. They got, I'm just looking at the ratio that they got right now. They got 522 retweets and 6,000 quote tweets, and like, you know what all those quote tweets are. They're like,
right
"Are
wing.
you kidding me?" Like, China's gonna fucking kill us. Like, they do
Yeah,
math,
right?
we do woke. Like, like,
These
like,
people
half
are
of them are
sick.
all about how China has like a hypersonic missile that like they can't target.
They've been doing
like,
that for they've been on TV like all day. They've been fucking
yeah,
talking about the
hypersonic missile. It defies the laws of physics. I actually heard someone say that it defies the laws of physics. Like, so, just like they said about the UFO.
Is it a
like,
UFO?
Is this,
like, are
yeah,
you gonna
it's
pin
the
the whole
UFO?
thing just like COVID? You're gonna pin it all on China? Like China's been doing UFOs? Like,
Yeah,
fuck
like,
up. Like, you know.
no, but like literally, like that. It's either China has a UFO or like our boys are still in Afghanistan. Like, what are you doing? Like, what about all the people who are dying right now in Afghanistan? Like, we need to help. And you're focused on pronouns and like like the idea that like when they came up with this idea of like posting or tweeting for pronouns day or whatever, like whoever told someone to do that, like if that person didn't know that, like they're terrible at their job. Like, and I just don't believe that they're that terrible at their job. It's like a level of just like not being aware of like the environment on Twitter in like an ambient way or the discourse and the like. I just feel that they do this. They do like they want you to be pissed off.
They want
like,
to get a rise out of people.
When Amy is like going off saying like, "Look at these woke tads, like they broke the sign," like Dave Chappelle didn't do anything wrong. Like that's what they want.
Yeah,
like I really do think that they are trying to piss you off. They want you to get pissed off. They want you to be focused on like the pronouns or like this and that. Like oh they said this. Like the academics. Like they really do want that. That is my belief.
No, I think I've come around to that too, and I felt that way a little way for a while because it's like it's so kind of tone deaf. It almost feels willfully tone deaf to like we're gonna poke and prod at you, and and try to get a rise out of you, but then we're gonna funnel anyone who does like get triggered basically. Get sucked into this whole like the right wingosphere. Like you got to go on the Tucker team now because there's no other constituency for you if you're sick of the woke tots, and so that's like a very difficult thing. Now, I mean, is Amy getting the Peter Thiel money and doing all this cynically, or is she just getting sucked into the vortex of this like culture war? Like sinister dialectic. I don't know. I can't say.
I mean, I don't even necessarily think that anyone getting the Peter Thiel money is like necessarily in on it. I feel like, at that level, at the Amy level, like I think that maybe they are like true believers, but I think that, I don't know. I really think that at a certain level, and I think that a lot of people who like, are like defending XYZ like woke thing or something, like, oh, Spidey's gonna be gay now, or like we're getting rid of this Dr. Seuss book or something, like the people who get mad at that, like, it's put out there, it's done. At some point, someone instigates this idea, maybe not like a Spidey thing, but whatever, you know what I mean? Like Stephen Colbert does some kind of thing, or like, something is seeded out there, like Spidey's gonna be gay, we're making this person black, like at the same time of like some more important thing or something like that, is going on, like we're turning Spidey black,
and then everybody into the other direction.
Exactly, and then Amy gets furious at it, and then like exactly. Then people are being like, "Well, wait, what's wrong with being black?" And it's just like that's not the fucking point. Like what's wrong with Spidey being black? Like nothing. Like, but none of this fucking matters.
It doesn't matter.
like
we need to
it doesn't fucking matter.
Caring.
Spidey's not real. He's not real.
He's a djinn. He's not even a djinn. He's not even a fucking djinn. He's a tulpa.
He's not a djinn.
He's basically a tulpa.
Yeah, he might have reached a status of a tulpa with all the energy that's being spent on Spidey.
Right?
Like maybe he's a tulpa, but yeah.
Oh God, yeah. I notice she is very up right now in attacking the treats discourse, and especially Chapo for promoting it.
The treats thing is something that I feel, like I saw some posts. I think it was L. Line Cook or something who said like the treats went out in a memo. Yeah. Like I don't think it actually went out in a memo. But it did go out in kind of a memo because it was on a certain podcast that everyone on the quote unquote, as Amy would call it, the left, like listens to.
Oh, really? Is that where the first mention of treats?
I think that might have had a role in perpetuating it. I don't know where it really came from or who fed it to them or whatever. But I think that in a way, like what L. Line Cook said was right. Like, and then what do you know? And like, yeah, like that is bullshit. Like, you know, again, like we can have a reasonable conversation about like supply chain issues and like, you know, the various problems around this, like, but now it's just become this thing where it's like, oh, you want your treats, like, and then and Amy like getting up into a tizzy over like the woke tads.
Yep.
When like none of this is now like,
and then nobody's actually talking about the supply chain because we got diverted into this like stupid fucking issue about whether or not Americans have too many treats or not, or whether we should like laugh at them or
and is it like ableist to like not want people to have treats? You know, like I need my treats. Like treats are the only thing I can eat because I have
we a bunch of fucking dogs?
Issues.
Like what? Who's eating treats? Like stop. Like this is exactly. So I mean, like she fills a purpose. Like it's like there's. You know, the discourse abhors a vacuum, and I feel like Amy Therese like fills it in. Like somebody's going to have to come out and kind of push back against that on the ostensible left, but it's also you have to wonder, like, is that kind of part of the design of these like hot button little pseudo issues in the first place, or just like I don't know, like, you know, rhetorical obfuscation kind of warfare, like irregular rhetorical warfare.
I mean, that's the thing, like,
just get everybody like off track.
Both of these sides like are insane. I believe that it is by like, you know, they're like absurd by design. Like the party line of both is like insane by design. Like, yeah, like, you know, for you know, like, yeah, Spidey like being black or whatever, like it's fine or whatever, you know, like usually people like will go on one side of that, like maybe they're like conservative or whatever about Spidey and they feel like it's wrong for Spidey to like change his roots, you know, because that's who Spidey is, you know, he's a white guy, like exactly, you know, like return you know, to Spidey being white. But if you telescope out for a second, you realize that this is about like fucking Spidey. It doesn't, at the end of the day, like matter at all, and like both positions are like stupid. Like who the fuck cares? Like that's the thing. Like it, and I feel like this is the case. Like in a lot, you know, like I'm trying to think of a more politically pertinent example. I'm trying to think of what's a good thing that people have gotten like outraged about lately. I don't know, like maybe saying that like words like are violence or something like that, you know? Like, yeah, words like can be hurtful, like they can be like traumatic, they can like linger with you in a long way if they like are something that like touches like something that you have an attachment to, like in your identity. You know, if someone's racist towards you, that like can, you know, in a certain way that can like be a form of violence. Like that's an understandable like idea, you know.
Sure.
And it's also understandable how like words aren't on the same level of like physical, you know, violence. Actually hurting somebody. Yeah, exactly, like physical violence. And you know, or like, you know, shooting somebody or stabbing somebody, you know, but then like both of these sides like end up like talking past each other and arguing like insane things. Like on one side, like, you know, racist words don't matter. On the other side, like you end up getting like railroaded into saying like, you know, these things actually are equivalent, you know, when really like no one actually thinks either. But somehow like through this design, through this architecture that we're all being forced into, people end up like arguing one or the other. Like no one actually thinks that like racism doesn't hurt, and like that there isn't such a thing, like, you know, that words can't in a way be a form of violence that hurts you, and no one actually thinks that like you know, a hurtful word is as hurtful as being like stabbed in your heart, you know, with a knife.
Yeah,
but really somehow we end up arguing opposite sides of this idea, like the idea that like they are just as hurtful, or the idea that like they don't hurt at all.
They don't matter, you know? At all. Like, if you're in a leftist space, like, I get it. You don't, like, I've heard anecdotes of, like, people going to DSA meetings just kind of, like, overly bogged down. And it's always, like, a bunch of, like, upper middle class, like, white people that are, like, running the meetings. But, like, they're so, like, terrified and, like, hello, like, I'm he, him, and, like, blah, blah, blah. And, like, we're going to do a progressive stack and, like, you know, et cetera, like, almost, like, driving themselves a little nutty to the point where it's even, like, off-putting, like, to the very people they're trying to, like, include. But then on the other side, it's, like, I should be able to, like, joke around and, like, say the N-word.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like, I'm okay with letting that one go. I'm fine. Like,
and somehow it always ends up, and somehow it always ends up being, like, on this, like these two, like, outrageous extremes. And I think that that's, like, one extreme being, like, I don't know, like, if you accidentally say he to someone who looks like what you've been brought up all your life to identify as a male, when really they identify as they, that's like, you know, an attack against them, and like you should lose your job or something. And on the other side, like, this is a white country and like everyone else needs to leave, or so, you know, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, and somehow people end up arguing, like, get like pushed into one of those two camps. I don't like, when really I think most people don't think either, but somehow like this is what our discourse is, like that we're forced to take like two sides in this weird dialectic. And I do think that like figures like Amy, like people who are like sort of signposts, or like they're like the bumpers in ping pong, you know, like they're randomly sort of placed all around. Like you're trying to get it into like the certain holes of like, you know,
you mean like mini
satisfactory.
golf?
No, not ping pong. Pinball.
Oh, pinball. Yeah.
When you're like, you know, and like things like light up or whatever, like, you know, but they're all like randomly placed around. So it's like you try to like shoot it into like having a cogent thought, and you like bounce off like post left Darth Vader. It's like, ding, 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 like try again. Yeah, exactly. And you like zap over to like the integralists, and it's like, you know, like, oh, good job, like, and like zaps you around.
No, true.
To like, you know,
it's
try like
dangerous
climb
out
or whatever,
Yeah.
and like you can't like get it where you want it to go.
Oh God, yeah. No, it's dangerous out there, but yeah. Okay.
It's a minefield.
Yeah.
All right.
it
So
is a
yeah.
minefield.
Just
Okay,
us, I feel like
that's our thoughts.
Yeah.
On the
These
substance
Q and
of
A's
the
are
movie.
brutal. I'm
I
like,
know.
we're just going through the weeds. Like, you know, I'm worried.
Okay. Anyway,
and we also like don't. Again, we just want to reiterate, like, we don't like, you know, come up with these things in advance. So this is like the hot seat, like for us. We're like,
it really
weighing in on
is. It
these.
really is.
People
like,
are
we've
asking
glanced
us
at
about
these
like
and
these,
nothing else.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to read number 6? I think we have time
All
for
right.
this one.
Yeah, I think we do. We're not going to make it to 10, I don't think,
No.
but we'll make it to 6.
We can make it to 6.
Yeah. Big Lou asks, how do we all feel about Scorsese's movies seeming to touch on deep political subjects, but always in the most liberal way? Taxi Driver depicts an isolated lone gunman. Goodfellas and Casino get into the mafia without touching any deeper government involvement. Now he has to make a movie and tell a story and can't exactly play Oliver Stone and intentionally pill us, but I think it gets sus when he delves into Nazi scientists and MK Ultra territory in Shutter Island. This came to mind when I first started reading this, only to make it all on the protagonist's head. And De Niro's fascination with the CIA seems sus too. He pushed to make that Good Shepherd movie about the CIA.
Yeah.
And he was the one who brought I Heard You Paint Houses to Scorsese to make into a movie. Both movies treat the CIA's involvement with organized crime with kid gloves. The Departed is seemingly the movie on upper echelon criminal informants, which we've seeing play out with the leaders of the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and the Base, and Charles Manson may have been as well, but the FBI is depicted as fumbling in and over their heads in the movie. Scorsese is partially responsible for the image of these subjects we have in our heads, and I guess my question is, does anybody know of any ties or connections he has that would make him intentionally depict these subjects in the most mainstream established narrative way? He could just not be a conspiracy theorist, I suppose. Haha. But then, why depict a guy who's searching for clues to a plot in a sanitarium to do experiments on mental patients aided by an ex-Nazi as insane? Seems like a psyop. Yeah, I recently watched Shutter Island for the first time, just not too long ago, and I was kind of stricken by like the psyop-y nature of the plot, because it did kind of touch on a lot of like, you know, very salient themes in like, you know, conspiracy theory narratives, like, you know, MK psyops, like things like, you know, the conspiracy in Shutter Island, like, basically is something that happens, but it turns out to just be like a fantasy.
It kind of sucks. It is ironic because I believe he was Oliver Stone's film professor at NYU when they were both young. But I guess, you know, whatever got Stone on the tip that he went on, Scorsese was like not as interested in it. I do wonder about that. I mean, I really liked Martin Scorsese's movies, like growing up. They were like very formative to me, and I thought they were like really cool and smart and stylish and like all these.
You know what
things.
I also watched around that same time? I think maybe because we were watching a few movies that were at Scorsese and DiCaprio, The Aviator, which is like a huge like panegyric like hagiography of Howard Hughes.
Yeah.
It's like so nice to him. Like
that's a real interesting one. I never saw it because it kind of just something felt like weird about it and like off, and I don't know, I like wasn't. It's one of the few movies of his I haven't seen, but I was interested once we started doing SJ. I was interested maybe in going back and like looking at it as we see how much Howard Hughes has popped up and how sketchy he was, but like really they don't get into any of the weird shit that much, except that he goes insane, but like it's like a panegyric to him.
Yeah. It's like very, I mean, he kind of goes insane in it, but he like is really depicted as being like kind of heroic and like, you know, like sort of a tragic figure, you know, like he is like a beautiful mind kind of, you know, he's eccentric, he has all these problems, like he's not able to form like relationships, like he's a deeply like flawed but great man, you know, who like it definitely is like a triumphant movie in which he's like a heroic figure. And you know, he has like it ends kind of like on a sort of ominous note of like he might go further insane, but you know, with him having like a triumph over like the doubters and his enemies, you know.
Interesting.
It's
Well,
it's and it doesn't go into like any of the stuff that you would read about Howard Hughes, like the Yankee and Cowboy War or anything like that.
Yeah,
like, you know,
that's
it's
weird.
very much like a straightforward Oscar bait type like biopic.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It looked boring to me, and it was like 3.5 hours long, so maybe that also kept me away.
It's
But-
not like boring per se. Like it's not any more boring than any biopic like that, but it is like a biopic like that. you know?
Yeah. I think, okay, so, you know, in terms of Scorsese's politics, it's worth mentioning that he was a kind of lefty guy in the 60s. Like, I remember watching years ago one of his NYU shorts called The Big Shave from 1967, which is described
which is
as
like
an
about
indictment.
the Vietnam War.
It's like a
you
metaphor
know, the
for
guy
Vietnam.
keeps shaving.
Until he
right.
shaves his like face off, basically.
Mm-hmm.
He just keeps doubling down, and then he had Mean Streets and everything, but he was also part of that like movie brat New Hollywood circle with Brian De Palma, Coppola, George Lucas, and Spielberg. He eventually moved out to LA in the early 70s and started making movies out there. I mean, Taxi Driver is one that I've come back to because, like, I don't know, when I saw it when I was like 15, I was just like, this is the most brilliant movie I've ever seen. Like, I just like, whoa, like Paul Schrader and Scorsese totally get it. I think it's still like a very good movie, a really amazing time capsule of like 1970s New York and everything. But I definitely have like gone back and kind of like re-examined it in the last few years. And I remember having a feeling like right after the 2016 election, I realized like, oh my God, like Travis Bickle's like an incel on 4chan, but like in the 70s. And I think at the time I was like driving for Uber, like I was like moonlighting as an Uber driver. And so I was thinking about like the weird isolation. Actually, Paul Schrader did that when he moved to LA and got divorced and lived in a taxi for like 2 months and was homeless. And that's when he wrote Taxi Driver and kind of felt like he was going insane and all this other stuff. So like, I feel like it's emotionally like a spot on thing, but it does have these elements of it that are so fucking weird. It's like, it's almost like, I mean, like if you think about like one of the main plots in it, there's like a Pizzagate plot where there's like this white girl who's like 12 years old that's being pimped out by Harvey Keitel. And then there's a
straight up like child trafficking, which I mean definitely think is a thing, like she's like pubescent kind of.
No, she's supposed to be
like
12. She's supposed to be 12 in the movie.
Right.
Or that's what and actually I mean, I think it was probably smart for them to do this, but I think they changed from the script the race of the pimp, Sport, played by Harvey Keitel, from a black pimp to like a white pimp, because otherwise, my God, that would hit a certain way today.
Well, it reminds me a little bit of like what we said on like You Can't Win about like Batman, like and how Batman's like family. Like one of the things I think is very insightful about Taxi Driver, and I think it does make this point well, and it does have some political relevance, is that like what. Like how random it can be, what the narrative of like an event becomes.
Yeah.
Like how like the heroism of Travis Bickle at the end, as like savior of these children from, these like in the situation, that is not really like a reflection of what like his real motives are or like the kind of person that he is. Like he's actually just like a maniac. And it kind of reminds me of like the idea like, conveniently like Batman's parents were murdered by like a white criminal, so like he hates criminals and his crusade is against like criminals. But like what if like they were murdered by a black criminal? Then like
if you apply the same logic, it'd be you have a real problematic Batman on your hands.
Well, it's like the same thing where like it's just like this kind of like reactionary impulse like that makes Batman into like a hero because it just so happens that like his psychosis is directed towards like baddies, like whatever. Like whatever he attached this trauma to would be like the object of his obsession, and it just so happens to be like bad, like criminals, and it just so happens that in his magical fantasy universe, the criminals are like mad scientists and stuff, you know, like we're just straight up like unnuanced like cartoon criminals. But you know, it's a similar thing where like it's just happenstance, you know, like actually these forces like actually like, you know, everything that leads to the point of like him of Travis Bickle going into the brothel, like, you know, there's a lot of like chance involved, and like the narrative that forms around him doesn't really capture what happened.
No.
But, you know, obviously in some ways we've talked about in the show, I feel like how that emphasis on like the randomness of events, even though that is like an important lesson and point, I think, around understanding, like it kind of relates to like our thing about like ISIS, you know, like who knows what the circumstances are that lead someone to be like in, you know, the group of ISIS combatants that are getting pissed on by war tourists from the United States after they are killed by an airstrike called in on an iPad by a podcaster. You know, like it might not be that they're like ideologically devoted to ISIS, you know, even though it's easy to fit them into these like, you know, very evil villainous box, you know. So
well,
I think
I mean, in that way, like Travis Bickle, I think it actually is a very salient movie to like today, because it does like spot these certain trends in like American culture, and how Travis Bickle is kind of like an unhinged like QAnon mass shooter or something like that. Like he almost murders a liberal senator. Like that's pretty much what he's like gearing up towards. And then when he's kind of frustrated in that attempt, he just switches over. Well, I'm gonna like save this girl from the pedos. You know, like And I think that the fact that he's a Vietnam veteran is so crucial, even though it's like only lightly kind of hinted at, mostly. You know, they don't make it a whole sob story about how he's like, oh, like the things he saw in Vietnam, but he does like shave his head into a mohawk, like the special forces, like Phoenix Commandos used to do. And there's definitely implication that like this guy was probably fucked up by being like a Marine in Vietnam. Like this guy probably killed people, and he's like this wellspring of like violence and like frustration. Also, I think we have to talk about like the bizarre Dracularity of the fact that Taxi Driver ended up inspiring John Hinckley Jr. to try to kill Ronald Reagan because he was obsessed with Jodie Foster. Just what? Like, that is fucking weird. And I don't know if it's like, I don't know, like, because Scorsese was really on like a bit of a hot streak with like Raging Bull and like, you know, stuff like that. I feel like in the late 70s, early 80s, like around the time that happened. And he kind of like went off into the wilderness a little bit in like the 80s after that shooting. I think it did have some kind of effect on him. You know, it's like, well, this is what you get, Marty, for making a movie where you like play fast and loose talking about political assassinations. Like, you're going to inspire somebody to go and fucking do. It's kind of like, you know, like 4 months ago, Alec Baldwin starts weirdly talking shit about the CIA on Twitter all the time. And then like, oh, he just happens to have a gun and like shoot somebody on set.
Yeah,
well, that'll shut
a whole
him
other
up.
thing with a live round. That's a whole other.
You know, it's a whole other thing. But it does. I don't know. It makes me think of like, because after the Jodie Foster, John Hinckley like incident, he didn't really get like directly political. I feel like in a lot of movies after that. Like
I will say about Taxi Driver, like even though I think that its point like is important, like even at the end when like, you know, he talks to his sort of like, you know, unattainable love interest, and he's like I hope he wins, you know, like it's almost like how apolitical
he doesn't give a fuck.
He is.
Like, and exactly. Also, you know, you gotta think like, is there something like PTK going on with fucking Travis Bickle?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, was he like PTK'd in the Phoenix program?
Well, you could read it that way, but I feel like even though it makes like kind of important like sociological points, like ultimately like, you know, there's more to politics than like the message of this movie, and like those aspects of politics don't really factor into like the oeuvre of Scorsese. You know,
they
like
don't really.
This is kind of really about like, you know, how politics, like it kind of shows politics as being like an expression of, you know, like random like emotional kind of effusions of broken people, which to an extent it is, but it's not only that.
Yeah,
you know, it's also like PTK type stuff and like deliberate plans by like, you know, Shaitan and his.
Well, for sure. I mean, I feel like even his good friend and fellow Italian Brian De Palma is like way more interested in kind of the big paranoid picture of things like of that political thing and like his thrillers. And Scorsese, he's a little more, I don't know, like he's got that Catholic kind of a sensibility. You know, he almost went to the seminary to become a priest. and he works a lot of like moral kind of dialectics like into his movies. But yeah, when you go through looking like his mob movies, like they're entertaining, they're interesting, whatever, they're like compelling. Like Casino does get like a little bit into it, but it's kind of like always disappointing how like little he gets into it, and especially The Irishman. Which, did you watch that?
No, I never watched it. I just felt like that.
Was,
I will say, like, you know, on the, like, you know, coming off the question about the several questions about, like, Twitter personalities, like, I will say that I almost find, like, the people who are, like, Scorsese, like, on Twitter, you know, like, I feel like a kind of, like, fandom has, like, developed around, like, him and, like, Tarantino. It's almost, to me, like, almost as annoying as, like, the Marvel fandom. I won't say almost as annoying, but, like, weirdly close to being, like, similar, like, in its, like, fandom dynamics. That maybe the association of that with The Irishman is kind of what turned me off of it.
It's like he's similar with like David Lynch among a slightly different set of people.
Yeah,
like he can do no wrong. He's such a genius. I mean, I do support it when he like talks shit about like Marvel movies.
Yeah,
and stuff.
absolutely.
Like,
I'm definitely on Scorsese's side in that debate broadly, but
critical
I'm not
support, but.
Yeah, but I'm not like a fucking Scorsese like fanboy to the point where like I'm scoping out like every time someone insults like, you know, I feel like there's like a fandom of like quote unquote real movies. Like I saw someone doing it like around The Last Duel where like, again, I almost feel like maybe this has something to do with like the culture war bullshit dialectic where like somehow like this will end up perpetuating this nonstop Marvel bullshit because like there's now like a fandom like calcifying or like coalescing around like, you know, any movie that isn't Marvel or is like a serious movie. Not to say that like, you know, a serious movie, an actual serious movie isn't good, but I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of like fanboyism, like anti-fanboyism that like coalesces around like Scorsese, like Tarantino, David Lynch that I find to be like, all right, you know, obviously like there's no fucking comparison between a movie like Taxi Driver, Last Temptation of the Christ,
Good
even
movie,
Departed
favorite
in like
Jesus
a Marvel
movie. Oh yeah, yeah.
You know?
No, they're categorically
it's
like
much
in
better,
different
but,
leagues. I did notice here though, looking through his Wikipedia apropos, that in 2010, the Wall Street Journal reported Scorsese was supporting the David Lynch Foundation's initiative to help 10,000 military veterans overcome PTSD through transcendental meditation.
Oh, awesome.
Scorsese has publicly discussed his own practice of TM, so he's a fucking TM guy. God damn it. Just to run through real quick, I think we're getting to the end here, but I think the Wolf of Wall Street bothered me in like a weird kind of way where I felt like he ducked like a lot of the more interesting things about like the evil world of high finance and picked this like relatively small time, you know, pump and dumper dude, Jordan Belfort, and then like really relished. I feel like you see it in memes that people use in social media today, like in terms of characters who were like misunderstood by their biggest fans, like, I don't know, Patrick Bateman, like Jordan Belfort in that movie, where everyone, like the douchiest like finance bros will always have like a fucking Leo DiCaprio like raising his like champagne glass on the yacht at you kind of thing, and just like the egregious levels of like, let me like snort coke out of a hooker's butt, and like it romanticized the very thing that it was sort of pretending to critique or like morally condemn. But it was so fun that like, how could you not love this? Like, and he does that with mobsters too. And, you know, I don't know. Like he also made Kundun, which was like about the 14th Dalai Lama and like fighting with the Chinese. I don't know how sus that is, but you know,
probably influenced by his practice of transcendental meditation.
It probably is. And then The Departed, I always kind of like The Departed actually does like, it does harm to like the real historical narrative of Whitey Bulger. I mean, it does. Like, it just makes it like this wacky thing where, like, yeah, like the FBI's dumb and Jack Nicholson's wacky and blah, blah, blah. He wasn't a fucking MK Ultra subject who was an FBI. I mean, it does show him being an FBI informant, but it leaves out, like, a lot of, like, the FBI in real life was, like, protecting him. They weren't just failing to catch him or some bullshit. Like, I don't know. There's stuff like that. And then, yeah, The Irishman, I felt like, again, pretty disappointing. Kind of, it mentions a couple times some like Bay of Pigs shit, and then it just moves on. Like, it's just like, come on, tell me what's on your mind, Marty. If you do care about this at all. I don't think that any of that
stuff is on his mind.
Maybe it's
honestly.
not. Yeah, I think he just like Tarantino and a lot of these other guys, they dive into like aesthetics and like movies, and they don't like to talk about I feel like a lot of these guys, if you started bringing up the way we talk about movies, like what's the subconscious like political influences and statements like that are expressed in this work, even if the auteur didn't intend, like they would get very mad very quickly at like how we're talking about like, what do you mean? Like I was doing it about a story about a man who wanted to achieve greatness, and that's why I made The Aviator. Like, what do you mean? It has nothing to do with like politics and blah blah blah. It's like, well, it's fucking Howard Hughes, man. You got to talk about the politics. It's Whitey Bulger. It's like the Jimmy Hoffa. Like,
you sound like you're not based on movie pilled.
I'm not.
You sound like you don't have a movie mindset, and you don't, etc. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would probably be happy making stuffy propaganda films in the Eastern Bloc. Because
I think that the only way to cure you of this problem is for us to do our next 5 episodes about like the Marvel movies and how we hate them, and Joker or whatever, and just spend all of our time like talking about whatever the most recent movies to come out are.
Cool.
And maybe go through Scorsese's entire catalog.
We'll just do like 20
yeah, just talk
episodes
about how amazing
in a row.
they are.
Yeah, and just
what we should do? We should just turn this podcast into a podcast about The Wire and just like do every single episode of The Wire and like and just talk about how it's great.
Anyway, God. 10 years too
sorry,
late.
that was a very ooky spooky thought for Halloween.
Yeah. You know what? Even Gangs in New York doesn't adequately, in retrospect, it doesn't adequately get into the Silk Toppers and really like explore. It's just like, oh, it's all Boss Tweed's fault. Just leave it there. Interesting. I mean, I guess he's not a button pusher like Oliver Stone or even De Palma. I don't know.
I think a lot of these people, I definitely could see some Scorsese fans getting mad at this comparison, but I think kind of like how Lin-Manuel Miranda read like one like book from like the airport bookstore about Alexander Hamilton and just like took that to be like the be all end all of like what history is, and ended up making a musical starring black people in which no actual black people appear. Like no actual historical black people appear. Like, I feel like Martin Scorsese is kind of the same thing, where he'll like read like one book about like a historical subject that like has an interesting narrative around it, and that will just be the end for him.
Yeah, I think he did that with Goodfellas. Like he just took that as like okay, and he worked with like the writer of the book, Nicholas Pileggi, I think.
And I think a lot of like not only artists but people are like that. Even
it's very common, and I mean, maybe
even
I get it.
People who think of themselves as being like history buffs, like they don't understand that like there might be more than one like perspective on like what happened.
Yeah, that's a dangerous thing to think about in terms of like Hollywood adaptations, that people are just doing one book. It's also for like probably bullshit like IP, intellectual property reasons. Like,
because like what, you want to adapt 2 books? Like no. What?
Yeah.
Help me.
I remember telling people in some meetings, they're like, oh, is this based on a book? And I'm like, well, it's based on like 5 books. Like, because I wasn't sure yet if I wanted to be chain like my fucking script to like one book. And they didn't like that. I could tell. But, I could tell. They're like not, like either say it's based on nothing or give us one thing that we can go out and buy and own. Or else like, what is this messiness? It's like, well, fucking Rashomon, dog. I don't know. But last thing I'll say, this will bring it full circle, that, yeah, I will say he's done good work in, like, film preservation and restoration of movies around the world. I think I saw a Kieslowski movie once in L.A. that he had restored very beautifully. But one of the things he did was he spearheaded the fundraising for the film restoration of Emmerich Pressburger's The Red Shoes from 1948.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go. Full circle.
Wow.
So
yeah,
good on him for that. But yes, is he a psyop? I don't know, but I feel like he definitely doesn't go as hard. He doesn't go hard in the paint the way I would want him to. Somebody of that cinematic skill. Yeah. So
all right.
Slightly disappointing, but yeah, all right.
I gotta go walk.
All right, cool. The dogs must go out. So we'll leave it there for now, but we'll be back pretty soon, probably a week after you hear this, with more Q&A questions from the Grotto.
Yeah,
Truth.
We'll do the rest of this 10.
Yeah, exactly. We have like 14 now for the next one, but
Great.
maybe we can make it go fast. We'll see.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yes.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. But thanks to the Grotto again for providing spicy questions. And until next time, dear listeners, stay vigilant.
Peace.